Greetings, Battle Brothers. It's me, Aurelia Tempris, Defender of the Golden Throne and Servant of Humanity. I hope the Twitch stream didn't die. I see people. I see people. Oh, good, good. Twitch is still here, and it's hopefully not gonna die like last time. That was bizarre. That was bizarre. And hello to YouTube as well. Hello to the both of you. Yes, this is critical. Man, I've been slacking. I've been trying to work on the skitter propaganda, but the plushie petition is still going, but we have 1 week left. Like just under, let me check. Just over a week. 7 days, 14 hours. The time is now to adopt your skitter plush. How is it not? I mean, it's a lot. It's a lofty goal. It is a lofty goal. So it's not unsurprising. We have 29. We need 29 more skitters to be adopted. It's a pretty simple petition. It's $2 to say you will get a skitter plushie later on, and if we don't meet the goal, then you get refunded. You get refunded. So yeah, we're getting pretty close though. I love to be able to make it, but you know, it is what it is. But in other exciting news, are any of you planning to go to WeebCon? Are any of you planning to go to WeebCon? I don't want you to be refunded either. That sounds weird, but I would love that we get the skitter plush made. So, if you aren't aware, actually let me get the other. Actually, no, we'll just use this one. One moment. If you aren't aware, if you're going to WeebCon, which is April 3rd through the 5th, I will be there for a virtual meet and greet. There we go. That's me. That's me there. So I will be there on the 4th. That's when my meet and greet is scheduled. I'll make sure I get all the times to you guys as it gets closer. Just got here. What's this about a skitter plush? I'm glad you asked. We are currently going through a petition to get a plush made. If you're wondering what a skitter is, Twitch, show them the skitters. Twitch, show them the skitters. Anyways, it's this little gremlin, and we need 100 people to back to say that they are going to get a skitter plush. You just put $2 towards it now, and you get charged for the rest later if the petition goes through. If it doesn't go through, you get completely refunded. So we're in the final stretch. We have 1 more week left where we have to reach our goal, and we have like 29 more that people have said yes. Why would anyone want to go to Texas? Texas isn't so bad. Texas isn't so bad. What's wrong with Texas? What's wrong with Texas? But in any case, this is, yes, my first ever virtual meet and greet. So I hope for those of you who are going to WeebCon that you make it. You don't have to buy any tickets or anything. It's perfectly free. Orchid 8 was amazing, and they made this opportunity possible. So I feel the best day to promote the skitter plush is at tomorrow's collab. We will see. The thing about promoting the plush like that is, it is a good thing. Like it would be a very good opportunity, but it's a matter of etiquette. It's a matter of etiquette. So we'll see. It depends on the vibes. It depends on the vibes, so we'll go from there. And oh wait, hang on. I was wondering why my tracking looked weird. I forgot to press the buttons. I was like, why does she look so stiff right now? There we go. She fixed. She's fixed. Yeah, I mean, you are correct. Collabs are places and where people can promote themselves to their friends' communities, but there's kind of like there's a little bit of like a decorum. Like, you don't want to commit a faux pas. So, sadly, Texas is a bit far from Europe. Yeah, it is. We'll see if we can do other meet and greets, but this is, you know, this is a good thing to start off with. Oi, I joined in here all this Texas slander. I'm so excited to see you at WeebCon. I'll make sure to bring my favorite model to show it off when I meet you. Yes, please, please. I would love to see as many of you as possible. That would be amazing. I would love to meet all of you guys. Show me your favorite mini, show me your stuff. There is also going to be, if you didn't want to pay for like shipping and stuff, in theory, I'm going to confirm with the Orchid 8 team, they will have Orchid 8 merch there of mine. They should, but I'm going to confirm that. So if you were like, I don't like paying shipping fees, or it's just easier to get your hands on something in person, they should have stuff there as well. Texas is very big. Very, very, very large. Which videos are we watching today? We have 2 fantasy videos, 1 Eldar video, all by Pancreas. Because when I look up stuff, that's all that appears. That's all that appears. Father demands barbecue for lunch, but it's evening. It's evening. How is it lunch? Yes, we are watching one of the Marathi videos. I saw the title and I was like, well, we're watching it. It's lunch somewhere in the world, but I happen to know he is not in a place where it is lunchtime. More like dinner. The insulin lacking man is all you need. I guess so. I guess so. And see, now I gotta be careful with what I say because he could be in this very room. It could be you. It could be me. You get to see Pank being very down bad. I mean, you know what? I'm getting used to it because I've learned too much about my other friend, Lore Master of Sotek. The things I see on the Twitter. I learn too much. I don't want to know things. Horse girls, tiger ladies, So, yeah. Yeah. You're not the only one cursed with knowledge. Yeah. Are you bothered by your friend being normal? He's a man of culture. There's just certain aspects that I just don't like knowing about my friends, where I'm like, I don't need to know what you're into. I'm okay with that. I'm okay with that. I don't need to know. Pancreas' video, it's just about as bad as you can imagine. Oh boy. His video is sponsored again, so be careful who you're watching it with. Wait, I'm watching it with chat though. Is it bad? Wait, it's a huh? Okay. Okay. Well, I've been warned at least. I've been warned at least. So yeah, the videos that we have today are I don't know how to say her name. Aurelia the Radiant, Marathi, and then we have one that's 40k. So we are getting a healthy amount of 40k in there, and that's Eldar Propaganda. I'm gonna take a I'm gonna take a propaganda look. Sorry, it's a dumb meme. Also, Blood Bowl League. Yes, there's a Blood Bowl League going on in the Discord server. The mods have been putting that together, and it seems to be going pretty well. They have a healthy amount of people, so if you like Blood Bowl and you want to play, we have a Discord server where they're doing that. I gotta practice. Oh, I said her name right? Yes! Well, don't ask me to say it again. Don't ask me to say it again. I'm accustomed to reading fantasy books, so I try to make my best guess as to how I think her name should be pronounced. And if that's not how you're supposed to pronounce it, well, it's wrong. I was devastated when I found out when I was reading a fantasy book that this one character, her name was spelled Alyss. And I always said her name was like Alice. Like, that's what I thought her name was. And turns out you're supposed to pronounce it like Alice. And I was like, no. No, that's not her name. That's not her name. I will not accept this. Oh. Well, this will be an interesting stream then. You'll get my reaction for that. I don't want to cut out of his sponsorship because, you know, that's like, you know, his thing. Oh boy. We have 28 more plushies that need to get adopted. All right. That's one. We're getting there. Slowly but surely. We're getting there. At least 4 need to get adopted every day. Then don't watch Pang's video. Well, we're gonna watch it. I mean, it's on YouTube, and it's a monetized video. It's probably fine. Right? Right? It's probably fine. Don't send the other 28 to the farm. Oh, gosh. Every time I hear a Reed Skitter, all I think about is Worm by Wild, but I don't... Is that a song? I'm not familiar. Alright, so should we watch the Marathi one first? Would that one be great? Okay. Every time I see the word skitter while reading the Horse Heresy, it makes me giggle. Yes, it does too. It does. Yes, we're starting with the worst mom. Absolutely. Why not? Marathi is his second crush. Well, who's his first crush? Who's his first crush? I actually don't know that. Yes, we're talking about Marathi, the woman who makes that the mother that makes Oedipus's mom look tame. Yeah, but okay, to be fair, I forget what her name is in Oedipus, but like, she had no clue. I'm pretty confident Marathi knows 100% what's going on here. Jocasta, thank you. Oh my gosh, well, thank you. Yeah, she didn't know. She had no idea. And you know what she did when she found out? She isekai'd herself from this world. So you can tell that if she had actually known, she wouldn't have done it. So, wait, you guys are serious? His first crush is Carl Franz. Okay, that's pretty great. Oh my gosh. Yeah, she went straight to the anime world after that. Worm is a superhero web series whose protagonist is a high school girl who controls bugs. it's 10 out of 10 and it spoiled me for superhero fiction in general. Huh. Interesting. Okay, that sounds interesting. Thank you, Soul Pelt, for the super chat. Huh. I mean, you can do a lot with bugs. Oh, and Ghost, thank you for the bits. I appreciate it. Has anyone seen the animation the girl is kited into the world of 40K? Oh, there's a video of that? I post that in the Discord. I have not seen that. I'm curious. Worm is so cool. Highly recommend. Hang on. I'll just put it. Worm. Comic. Series. Okay, well I have it pulled up. I'll look at it later. Man, my neck is stiff. Yeah, see, look, Marathi is very different from Jocasta. Come on, she, yeah. No hesitation with Marathi. Yeah, that's kind of messed up. It's messed up. Okay. Okay, should we watch things? Should we get ready to hear about the worst mom ever? Because I think we should do that thing. Okay. We're gonna watch Marathi first, then. Get the halo off. And... be good. Okay. We're learning about the Dommy Mommy. Oh wait, my music. Boom. Does the halo get tangled in my hair? No. I just take the halo off so it doesn't like cover the whole screen. Like I'm already taking up like a corner of the video already. So it's just like it's just more space. It's not required. So no, normally no. Okay, let's do audio check.
You know what phrase indicates...
Oh, I'm so sorry. That was very loud. I turned it up because I was doing something earlier. Sorry. I'm sorry.
It's that you're a weak, feeble human being.
Okay. Was that better? Was that better? So sorry. Okay. Let's see. It needs to be higher after that last one. I'm so sorry, guys. Good luck with work. Good luck with work. Guys are dramatic. You guys are being dramatic. Oh my. Okay, no, it wasn't scuff. I was recording something else earlier and I turned up the desktop audio and I forgot to change it. Okay, settle down. Settle down. You guys are being dramatic. I'm going to start it because it seemed fine.
You know what phrase indicates that you're a weak, feeble human being? I can fix her. That right there, that's the kind of attitude that shows you're a coward. Some Reddit tier le
Yeah.
gentleman crap is what it is. You're really gonna go up to a dark elf lady and go, yeah, I can fix that. No, you aren't. You're not fixing anything today. And what we're not fixing today for this video is Morathi, the mother of the Druchii, mother of Malekith, evil sorceress older than almost everyone else in the setting, and tall, hot lady. Very tall, hot lady. She's been a Slanesh cultist, a faction leader, a goddess, and more. And overall, she's a pretty horrible person in pretty much every way you can imagine. And you know what the right attitude to take when discussing her is? It's not, I can fix her. That is not why I'm here today. The attitude I'm bringing to the table now is simple. I'm going to talk about Morathi, her lore, her tabletop, and how she can make me worse. You hear me loud and clear out there, everyone? I'm not here to discuss why she's a horrible person. I'm here to get stepped on. Sit down, shut up, and listen to the worst lore video you're ever going to watch in your life, because I'm down bad and I'm not getting better about it. But before we start, though, imagine this. Let's say you are a dark elf after some invasion or other. You serve Morathi well, and now you've got some downtime to kill. You want to take some time to feel good after a successful raid. You know the perfect way to de-stress? Adam and Eve, the sponsor of today's video. Let's be upfront about what you're getting here. Adam and Eve make adult toys. All different kinds. Any sort of toy you can think of, Adam and Eve has. Looking through the catalog is like looking through an art gallery, except instead of boring paintings and sculptures, it's the finest adult toys known to mankind. They've got anything you can think of to spice up your life a bit. But maybe you're thinking you'd like to keep things on the down low a bit. Not to worry, Adam and Eve has discreet shipping just for you. They've got 24/7 customer service and a 90-day return policy, just to make sure all your goods are in order. They've been in business for over 50 years, so you can rest easy knowing they're making quality products only. And just to put the pop cherry on top, 20% of their profit goes to fighting the spread of HIV. That's a worthy cause if I've ever heard one. Cool. And just to spice up this already saucy offer, here's a deal from me to you. This video is sponsored by Adam and Eve.
Sorry, that's like, here's a deal from me to you. I'm like, no thank you. No thanks, Pancreas. I'm good. I don't need any deals.
.com. Use code Pancreas for 50% off one item, plus free shipping in the US and Canada, plus free rush processing. Some exclusions apply. So what are you waiting for? Shop at Adam and Eve today and start feeling good. Now then, let's continue being down horrible. Morathi long ago was once nothing particularly special among the elves. She's so goddamn old that she was alive when the elves were all one faction, and the Great Catastrophe hadn't occurred yet. The elves' existence up to now had been chilling out on Ulthuan and nothing else. No demons, no millennia-long civil war, they weren't even aware of the dwarfs yet. She did, however, have two things to set her apart. She was beautiful beyond compare even back then, and since she was 11 years old, she kept receiving visions of worldwide doom and destruction. For whatever reason, she could foresee the Old One's gates at the poles erupting into chaos demons. No one believed her, though, despite the fact she did everything in her power to convince the elves of the coming danger. In her mind, it was because she thought the elves were so content and complacent in their paradise world the Old Ones were creating for them that they just couldn't comprehend things going so wrong. Personally, I think it's just because her only argument was to go look how hot I am to convince people that the world was ending. When your best defense against a counter-argument is to go look how great my tits are, you probably aren't winning the hearts and minds of the people.
That's like, that gives me like Vtuber vibes. It's like, you're wrong, but my boobs, they're just too good. I see your point. Counterpoint. Boobs. That's pretty much how it goes.
At least not in the way you want. Well, turns out she was absolutely right, because those gates exploded and demons were everywhere. Old Ones peace out, lizardmen go into full panic mode and wage a world war to stop them, and the elves for their part also tried to fight with much less initial success. About the only fellows doing anything with any amount of success were Kaled or Dragon Tamer, a wizard so powerful he could give Teclis a run for his money, and an Aryan. An Aryan in particular is important because he had just lost his wife and kids to chaos. His kids lived, as it turns out, but he didn't know that, and in his grief, he and Morathi comforted each other in the dark times of the Great Catastrophe. By which I, of course, mean absolutely ball-busting sex. She also brewed them sleeping potions because the Great Catastrophe was the sort of thing that gave everyone PTSD before the trauma was even finished, which is actually kinda heartwarming. All was not well for the couple, however, in case the fact that it only came about because an Aryan was grieving over the received death of his family didn't clue you in. Morathi, for her part, did come to truly—
That's like the ultimate rebound if you think about it. Like, my wife died and my kids died. And like, I don't know, I haven't read the books or anything, but that gives me the impression where it's like, I'm sorry, she is a rebound, and not the kind of rebound you want to be. He's just like, I just need to feel something. Because my wife died. So, yeah, that's... I don't know.
Love Anarian. Anarian, however, was, shall we say, a bit more reserved on that front. He had a number of reservations about her.
I also remember watching... I also remember watching this movie as a child.
Anarian, however, was, shall we say, a bit more reserved on that front. He had a number of reservations about her, even disregarding that, chiefly among them being he felt she was looking into their chaotic enemies just a wee bit too closely. He acknowledged that she was hot as all hell, but unlike almost everyone else alive at this point, that's about all he cared to say on the matter. He wasn't hypnotized by her beauty, he just kinda acknowledged it. The same could be said for the temper she had. Anarian was the sort of guy who fought a dozen greater demons before it was noon, so Morathi's status as a sorceress who would occasionally fly into a blinding rage was at most slightly concerning as far as his safety went. That's part of what drew her towards him, since he was the only one who wouldn't leave the room as soon as possible when she started throwing a magical hissy fit. Despite everything she had going for her, though, there was a little issue of her being a bit too interested in dark magic, like I said, and Anarian's true love was his previous wife, Asteriel. Morathi was really just a shoulder for him to cry on, and you know how the rest of that saying goes, I'm sure. Towards the
I told you, she was the rebound.
the end, he realized that Morathi was ultimately an enemy of everything he knew and loved. He nearly struck her down when he left her for the final time, and it was a very nearly thing. The only true positive he felt came out of their relationship was their son Malekith, and whoo boy, isn't that a loaded sentence. What also didn't help matters was that Kalidor, Anarian's best buddy, also didn't trust Morathi in the slightest, and was very clear about his stance on the matter. As he was leaving for his final battle, Morathi told Anarian that she loved him, but he didn't reply. Do keep this moment in mind, because it's probably the last time Morathi is sympathetic in a way that isn't just pathetic. After he plopped the Sword of Cain back in its altar and cursed his bloodline forever, she looked all across Ulthuan for him, but on account of him being dead, never found Anarian. After that whole business with the world nearly ending was concluded, Morathi proved every single person who thought ill of her right by founding the Cults of Pleasure. She also tried to subtly guide her son Malekith towards the Phoenix Throne, because she figured she might as well hedge her bets with being in charge of everyone. She gifted him nice things like a fancy boat and helped him along in his quests, and when Malekith was turned down in favor of Belshazzar becoming the Phoenix King, she was more upset about the matter than he was. She plotted all the while, and things came to a head when Malekith returned from his ventures across the world and was put in charge of dealing with the Cults of Pleasure. This ended up being a bit awkward when Malekith started purging the Cults of Pleasure, and one fateful day found out that his mother was the one in charge of them. Malekith debated killing Mommy Dearest then and there, but she promised him the full support of the Pleasure Cult and giving him the Phoenix Throne in exchange for her life. After a few days of fierce fighting and deliberation, he decided he'd side with her. Unfortunately, for all the cunning and brilliance those two have by modern Warhammer fantasy, it would appear all of that was gained over the course of the 1,000 years they've been alive and away from Ulthuan, because their initial plan to put Malekith on the Phoenix Throne was taken straight from the playbook of a 12-year-old playing Among Us. Malekith assembled the Elven princes and loudly announced that Belshazzar was a traitor and member of the Pleasure Cults. And the evidence he and Morathi had for this brilliant scheme? Trust me, bro, I'm Malekith. To the shock of no one but Malekith and Morathi, no one believed him. So they went for Plan B, which involved Malekith walking into the flame of Assyrian and killing all the princes. Malekith was deep-fried, a lot of the High Elf princes died, and Morathi dragged her crispy bacon son to relative safety. For a little while, they waged war against the Loyalist elves, and when it looked like they were losing, she tried to undo the magical vortex. It worked, and then when that unleashed all the elves trapped inside of the vortex, it unworked. Morathi got a rogue blacksmith of all to make Malekith his discount Darth Vader armor, and then they fled to Nagaroth. Now, Morathi's activities between then and the 10,000 years later of modern Warhammer fantasy are varied, but also pretty much the same thing every time. The specifics change, but overall she fell into a pretty predictable pattern. Her and Malekith would plot against each other, it wouldn't work, they'd kind of make up, and then invade Ulthuan. Imagine that, but stretch it out over a 10,000 year period, and that's about what she got up to. One time she killed a love interest Malekith had because she was afraid she would make Malekith a nicer person all around, and he wasn't happy with that one in particular. She also dueled Teclis during the most brutal of the Dark Elf invasions at the Battle of Finneval Plain on Ulthuan, but despite her being a monstrous mage from prehistory, Teclis is Teclis, and therefore won by default. As we know from the novel Sons of Illyrian, at one point she talked to Kalidor again, and they had a nice pissing contest where Morathi called him a frail shadow of his former self. To be fair to her, he did look like a skeleton when they were talking, so I don't blame her for thinking that. She told him one of the reasons she wanted to destroy the world with the Vortex was because Kalidor didn't want it destroyed, which is petty beyond mortal comprehension. This was then eventually followed by Kalidor revealing he's not actually a desiccated corpse of an elf, but still firmly in his prime, and Morathi was sent packing. Officially, she's one of the chief priestesses of Cain, presiding over his cult. cult. She uses her status as the chief hag priestess to bathe in a cauldron of blood, which keeps her youthful appearance because of magical reasons that probably make sense if you're a dark elf. Unofficially, at least in older lore, she's also back on the grind of being the head of the pleasure cults as well, which she reformed into the Dark Elves' land. Elves in fantasy aren't like the Eldar in 40K, and there's nothing stopping them from worshipping Slaanesh aside from it being a bad idea in general. Sure, Slaanesh does still prefer elven souls above all others, but she doesn't instantly consume them like over in 40K. She would frequently be seen surrounded by demonettes at parties, and those parties usually had a 100% mortality rate for people who weren't named Morathi. In newer lore, she was retconned to be an important figure in the worship of the elven goddess Atharti, their own goddess of pleasure. This is because GW started treating the elves like the Eldar and decided they're all horrified of Slaanesh in the exact same way.
Lame.
She's also a firm worshipper of the goddess Akarti, Atharti's sister and the goddess of dark magic. This is both because she's a sorceress and naturally wants to get that sweet god magic, and because the two divine sisters don't like each other and like to snipe each other's followers. It's equal part worship and hedging her bets. Another difference between the old lore and new lore is that whole business with Malekith. You know the business. The mother of all Oedipus complex's business. That was moved away from as time went on in fantasy. Whether or not you choose to believe the older or newer lore on exactly how close Morathi and her son were is up to you, but I choose to believe the newer lore because it makes it slightly less gross when I say that I want to drown between Morathi's legs. I have accepted that I am not getting full monetization on this video. As a general rule of thumb, Morathi's responsible for all aspects of Dark Elf culture that Malekith isn't, and she probably had a hand in those too. For instance, while Malekith instituted Cain as their chief god, Morathi is the leader of the cult of Cain and thus the one who handles the specifics. It makes it very fun when they decide they want the other dead, because one of them is the undisputed king and the other one is the one who people have to most often directly deal with. Usually it involves every assassin one sends after the other horribly dead, and a stern talking to from Malekith to Morathi that she better cut the crap. She does for a few dozen years, then tries to kill him again. Sometimes she gets exiled, and then she comes back. Repeat ad nauseum. Despite her maybe not Slaanesh worship, she has acted against the Chaos worshippers to the north of the Dark Elves' territory. She seduced them to her side, fought them tooth and nail, and generally is as much a pain in their ass as she is for the High Elves. There was one instance where she built them a massive palace of their own and gifted them absurd amounts of wealth to convince them to pledge loyalty to her and Malekith. If you're mostly a 40K fan and think it sounds odd that Chaos followers would work with non-Chaos folk, remember that the Norskins as often as not just want to survive, and any source of glory is good enough for them.
I remember him saying that earlier, where it's just like, we're just trying to get by, it just makes it a little bit easier.
Dark Elves in battle will get Khorne as blood and skulls just as well as fighting for only Khorne, and Morathi knows damn well that's the case. Compared to Malekith, she's a lot sneakier with her schemes like this, willing to do more than bash people's brains in to get what she wants. That's not to say that Malekith can't be cunning, or Morathi can't use brute force when need be, they've just got their preferences for how to get things done. And the last thing before we move on to the end times is one final difference between older lore and newer lore. Much like her, relationship with her son has changed, so has her general mentality. And I mean that very literally, because as Warhammer reached its 8th edition, she was given dementia. She occasionally thinks she's still in an Arian's time and will look for her husband desperately, and it's just sad. And in the end times, it only gets worse. Elven civil war comes to a head, and when Tyrion pulls the Sword of Cain, she goes fully insane and thinks he's an Aryan reborn. As Teclis is trying to bind the winds of magic to the incarnates, Morathi also is the one who really screws the pooch on that and messes up that ritual. She once again completely unbinds the vortex and dooms Ulthuan, and takes down a number of the mages trapped inside who were keeping it going. Good old Kalidor Dragon Tamer gets the last laugh though, because as Slaanesh begins to enter the material plane, he gives Morathi one final middle finger. As the ritual was coming to an abrupt end, Morathi tried to flee on account of not wanting to get Slaaneshed. Then Kalidor comes in with the people's elbow and drags Morathi into Slaanesh's maw with him. No, he didn't actually use a wrestling move, but come on, tell me the mental image doesn't make it better. And at least as far as I'm concerned, that's the most important bit of Morathi in the end times. She pushed Tyrion to be even crazier, and she got killed. In terms of what she actually did, not much. But in terms of the ramifications, I can comfortably say she ruined almost everything. Oh, she was also revealed to be the mortal incarnation of Hecate. You would think that would mean something, but much like almost every plot point in the end times, it doesn't. But we're not done with the Dami Druki Mami yet, because she comes back in Age of Sigmar.
Oh no.
Somehow.
Oh no. It's a little bit cooler than you might think because the elf gods are still alive. It adds a little bit of fun interplay between Slaanesh and them. Oh, okay. I still kind of think it is lame that they're like, oh well, now all the elves hate Slaanesh. I don't. You have the opportunity to like make it creative and make it different from before, but now it's like, I don't know. I just think it's kind of lame. I think it's a little bit lame. But thank you, Super Orlock, for the super chat. So,
Marathi.
hang on. Oh, it's not what I wanted.
But we're not done with the Dami Druki Mami yet, because she comes back in Age of Sigmar. Somehow Marathi returns in Olgu, the realm of shadow. For a while she was alone with nothing but beings of pure shadow she created with her magic, until eventually she found Malekith, who I will not refer to as Malarian because I simply do not care for the name change. Unlike her, Malekith was now a true god, as were Tyrion and Teclis.
Wow.
Rather understandably, this made her a bit upset. Not that she really deserves godhood, but I get the frustration. She did, however, have one thing going for her: the key to accessing Slaanesh to steal away the devoured elven souls in her stomach. She may not be a god, but she's still got some leverage, and more to the point, a reason for the other 3 elven deities not to just end her life. They split the souls amongst themselves to try and recreate the elves of old with, and naturally, Marathi dicked around with the ritual to ensure she got slightly more than the others did. Coupled with this was her getting quite the lucky break when she came into contact with Kain's heart, and she did not let that gift go to waste. She assembled together the Daughters of Kain faction, dedicated to restoring Kain to his former glory via worship of the dead god. Once again, however, she was being the sneakiest git in the mortal realms, because she was siphoning the power that would otherwise resurrect him into herself. That's not all she did, though, of course.
Yeah.
She tried to seduce the other gods and get into their good graces, because hey, she's still hot as hell and it always worked before. Unfortunately for her, the only choices as far as gods go weren't great, so she never had much success. There's Tyrion and Teclis, who hate her, Malekith, who only hates her slightly less than he used to, Sigmar, who couldn't care less about Marathi if he tried, Alariel, who also hates her and would probably have her crucified on magical branches, the dwarf gods, who almost certainly also hate her for what she did to their kin in the old world, Gorkamorka, who you cannot seduce because he's the orc god and probably doesn't even understand sex, and last but not least, Nagash. She tried to seduce Nagash. Nagash, who is A, a skeleton, and B, taller than a Wraith Knight. Not only did this not work, because of course it didn't, Nagash backhanded her so goddamned hard that her true form as a monstrous half-snake creature was revealed. After this, she was forced to contend with the fact that in Age of Sigmar, she can no longer sleep her way to power and influence. For a while, she was being pretty low-key with everything, quietly siphoning power meant for Kain, but one day she decided she would act decisively. She dealt with the Eidenhit to get a lantern from them that would allow her to enter Slaanesh again, which incidentally, they stole from Teclis when they ran away from him. She entered Slaanesh not just to get more souls, but specifically to steal the power of the previous Phoenix King Slaanesh had inside of her. Each of them had a bit of Assyrian's power within them, which coincidentally also means that Malekith being the one true Phoenix King has been retconned. Thank God. When she reached the last and first one, Anarian, she paused. Even after countless eons and the end of the world, she still held some small bit of love for him. But do you remember how he didn't say he loved her back at the end?
That's gonna be
Absence did not make his heart grow fonder, and he cut her soul in two. Because of this, Marathi's attempt at godhood both did and didn't work. On the plus side, she was now a full goddess. Good for her. On the downside, there's a whole lot of crap she has to deal with now because of it. The first thing she did upon reaching godhood was annexing the city of Anvilgard from under Sigmar's nose. She had the excuse of the fact it was going to be crushed by orcs and a rampaging destruction god without her intervention, but this coupled with the fact she's now a full god means Sigmar and the rest are going to be watching her like a hawk. And now instead of being able to choose between looking like the hottest elf ever or the hottest snake monster ever, she's now one being with two bodies. The elf version is Marathi Kain, and the snake lady is now the Shadow Queen. The Shadow Queen seems to have gotten a bit more of Kain's influence than she would have liked. The god Kragnos whooped her ass during the whole Anvilgard business, and she's on the warpath to rematch him, in spite of the fact she'll probably still get bodied, and Marathi is having issues reining her in. It's looking more and more likely that the Shadow Queen half of Marathi is going to be causing some diplomatic issues in the future. And despite now becoming a proper god, Sigmar still deems her beneath his notice, which pisses her off to no end. Instead of dealing with her himself, he sent the Celestin Prime to do it. She wasn't happy with the implication of still not being worth his time, but they disappeared into a room for a while, and when they came out, Marathi was allowed to have Anvilgard in exchange for all the Stormcast within the city. She renamed the city Har Kuran and is contending with the fact that everyone inside of it would rather her not be in charge. Interestingly enough, the dwarf god Grungni of all people told the Celestin Prime to just let her have the damn city. Like I said before, never would have thought he cared for her in the slightest. Maybe she should have tried her luck getting into his pants. The problems don't end there either. Her Daughters of Kain are having a bit of a religious schism at the moment, with many of them being appalled and angry over the fact Marathi lied about their whole religion. Or rather, the fact that she lied about using the power she was stealing to resurrect Kain. The divide between those loyal to her and those who aren't is becoming more and more divisive as time goes on. She also had a nice little chat with Malekith, who criticized her for blundering into godhood in a way that managed to piss off pretty much every faction in the setting. She told him he couldn't talk down to her and cut off his fingers, but he's made of shadow so it didn't really do much to him. When she told him about Tyrion moving against him, Malekith informed her he was well aware and was taking steps to counter the god of Hysh, which impressed her a bit and made her regard her son just a little bit more fondly. Not much, but hey, they aren't trying to kill each other anymore and they're sort of working together, so it's an improvement from fantasy. She leaves the conversation by going to crush.
That's honestly like a really good deal. Like, how many family members have ascended to godhood, and then on top of that, it's like not only did you become a god, like your mom became a god. Like that's pretty good. I don't think a lot of people can boast that.
To revolt against her in Avelgard and basking in the glory of her newfound divinity. Oh, when Nagash attacked her with Night Haunt because he thinks the soul she used to ascend to godhood belonged to him. But that's a non-statement. That's his standard operating procedure. Me telling you Nagash is complaining about people not handing their souls to him is the same as me telling you water is wet. I'm assuming you knew that already.
Yeah.
Now looking back on the script, I'm worried I might have taken the piss out of Morathi just a bit too much. And to be fair, she failed to successfully put Malekith on the throne of Ulthuan, failed to retake Ulthuan over the course of 10,000 years, wasn't even a god like almost every other returning elf character in AOS, and when she did finally become a god, it was in possibly the most offensive way she could have done it. So let's just clear the water on this. Morathi is monstrously competent and monstrously dangerous. She is one of the strongest mages in all of Warhammer, only really being beaten out by the Slann, Teclis, and Nagash. Her being basically immortal in fantasy, and now actually immortal in AOS, means that she can spend centuries plotting for a single thing, and almost no one will see it coming until they have to deal with the aftermath of it. She consorts with chaos and has always gotten away with it, and quite frankly, that's probably the ultimate testament to how capable and frightening she can be. Slaanesh demons, especially out of every demon out there, will do their best to make sure you regret dealing with them, and Morathi has never had to face those consequences. Unless your name is Aletha Nar, you would do well to be deathly afraid of what this woman can do, because she can either have a network of spies spanning the entire world blackbag you, or send your very soul to the depths of hell herself. To reinforce this, let's look at how monstrous this elf can be in Age of Sigmar. For lore positives of Morathi, she's a cunning sorceress who's held her ground for 10,000 years in Warhammer fantasy and managed to survive being eaten by Slaanesh. She's crawled her way to godhood inch by agonizing inch and hasn't let anything stand in her way. If you want a character that not only has the strength of will to face the most daunting of challenges, but the cunning and power to do so in a variety of ways, you want her. She's of course also a pick for you if you want a faction leader to be in your army. She founded and leads the Daughters of Cain, and more to the point, she's a goddess now, which is another thing going for her from a lore standpoint.
Yeah.
It leads into a couple positives actually. She's shown growth in ways beyond just character growth. Seeing a character grow and change is always nice, but failing that, seeing them grow physically can be just as cool, and there's no upgrade quite like reaching divinity. If you like returning characters from Warhammer Fantasy, she's of course an ideal pick, with the added bonus that our army is largely also made up of returning Warhammer Fantasy models. Or at the least, it's inspired by the Witch Elves from Fantasy for the newer models it has. And finally, for lore positives, attractive dark elf lady who will crush your testicles. I told you I was here for her to make me worse, didn't I? And let me just counter a few of the arguments I can see coming to that statement. She's a monster, ad hominem. She's a dark elf, they're inherently evil. Hasty generalization. She'll just torture you to death. You don't know what I'm into. As for tabletop positives, she's good at everything. Because remember, she's both a snake monster and a sexy lady. Her elf form, Morathi Kane, is quite the spellcaster. She can cast 3 spells a turn and unbind 2, and automatically knows the lore of Shadow. She also has the spell Black Horror of Olgu, which is a nice way to get some easy mortal wounds. With a 4-up save and 6 wounds, she's not exactly the tankiest around, but we'll get to why that isn't so bad shortly. She can have any Daughters of Cain unit fight for free. She's treated as a general even if she's not your general, and all units trying to hit her automatically subtract 1 from their roll because of how hot she is. But you don't just get Morathi the Mage out of taking her.
See, that's why you don't have to worry. She can wear her bikini armor and it doesn't matter. She still is very much protected.
You also get Morathi the Shadow Queen out of the deal. It used to be that you could choose to have her transform, or depending on how many wounds she's taken, she'd lose control and do it, but now you take both of her forms at once, since her ascendancy to godhood split her soul in half. Whereas Morathi Kane fights by casting spells, the Shadow Queen's role on the battlefield is to fuck your opponent in the mouth. At twice the number of wounds, she's much tankier, but the most standout rules in this department are the 2 bodies, 1 soul, and Iron Heart of Cain rules. Any wounds Morathi takes are instead allocated to the Shadow Queen, and the Shadow Queen cannot take more more than 3 wounds per turn. If an ability would kill either of them outright, the Shadow Queen just takes an automatic 3 wounds and that's it. While the Shadow Queen can't heal, she arguably doesn't need it. Throw her into the middle of the enemy's army. It's probably not gonna matter until turn 4 at the least. This pairs nicely with how absurdly powerful the Shadow Queen is in melee. Morathi in melee is okay, but nothing to write home about. The Shadow Queen can dish out dozens of wounds a turn, and she lets some of the Daughters of Cain more monstrous units fight better with a +1 to their attack stat. To top it off, she can fly, and until her stat line starts degrading, has 14 inches of movement.
Wow.
There is nowhere safe from her. Use her to take out archers and artillery, throw her at a fragile mage casting spells, or just walk her into something 3 times her size and have her send it straight to hell. There are very few things on the tabletop that have a chance at stopping her, and even some of those aren't safe. If she gets into range of Archaon or Nagash, there's no telling who'll win. Even Gotrek isn't safe, although that's tabletop only, I'm sure. In universe, Morathi would graduate from goddess to dead goddess if they fought each other. But while they come as a kid and share a wound pool, they're separate units in the game, meaning you can have Morathi Cain on one end of the battlefield throwing spells around while the Shadow Queen mulches the other end. They're versatile in a way that no one else quite manages because of this, letting you pull off all kinds of tricks to get the upper hand. Very fitting for Morathi's character. And either way, her models are gorgeous. All half jokes about how attractive she is aside, Morathi...
Ooh. I really like the snake one. That one's really good. I'm a huge fan of that.
Morathi Cain is the epitome of an evil sorceress as far as modeling goes, and the Shadow Queen is beautiful in the way only the most monstrous of models can be. As for her flaws though, she's got a few. Lore-wise, she's kind of been playing second fiddle in some way all her life. She was second fiddle to Anarion and Kalador, second fiddle to Malekith, second fiddle to Malekith, Tyrion, and Teclis as gods in AOS. She by no means accepts this as her place in life and constantly strives for more, but you'll notice she has a lot of stumbling blocks in her way. Kind of makes her an underdog, which is appealing in its own way, but just keep everything in mind. She's also evil. Just straight up a horrible person. As I said before, I have no issues with this, but I'm a simp for anyone with 2 X chromosomes and pointy ears. Myrrh notwithstanding. She's directly killed at least thousands and indirectly gotten millions killed, and between her and Malekith, arguably they put the world in a state that the end times could have happened in the first place. In Age of Sigmar, she's only on the side of order because she wants to build up her own twisted civilization. No one on her side likes her, it's just that her choices outside of that are Chaos, the Orcs, and the Skeleman who pimp-slapped her so hard her magic turned off. Morathi is probably the last person you want in your army if you want to be under any illusion you're fighting for a higher purpose, because even her lies to the rest of the Daughters of Cain involve bringing back the god of murder. For all her cunning, she also seems to be completely unaware of the consequences of her own actions. Take her desperate bid to achieve godhood. The idea that the other gods are now going to be extra pissed at her for the actions she took to get it just doesn't seem to factor into her equations. She kinda just tells Malekith she can handle it now that she's a proper god, ignoring the fact that Sigmar and Nagash together took on beasts that would have made the Chaos gods wary, and none of the other gods are slouches either. Between this and when she stole extra souls from Slaanesh early in the setting's history, she's also at least twice now contributed to Slaanesh's prison being weakened and her getting closer to breaking out. This is not only stupid, but ironic because early on she was worried Slaanesh would be able to break out one day. So she complained about Slaanesh getting free and then proceeded to make it so Slaanesh would have an easier time getting free. I'm adding 2 and 2 here and it's coming up 5. I do not understand her line of reasoning. And with the Shadow Queen seeming to be doing its own thing, Morathi is more and more worried of completely losing control over it. It's almost certainly going to kill something it shouldn't have, and then Morathi's going to have to contend with the fact that no one outside her faction likes her and half of her own faction doesn't either. That's what you get when you steal divinity from the god of murder. As for tabletop cons, the worst 100%. Is easily her point cost. Since you now take both of them at once, you're paying for both of them at once, and that comes out to a whopping 700 points. Not as bad as Nagash, but you don't get credit for not being half of a 2,000 point army. Both of the models are great at what they do, but they're a massive chunk of their force. You know the drill when I talk about expensive characters by now. Smaller games, she just isn't making an appearance. Larger games, she's the cornerstone of your army. Only being able to take 3 wounds a turn does largely offset this, but you'll probably still either end up forming your battle plan around her, or at least have her be a key component of it. Again, not nearly as bad as other characters since she has some serious staying power. In this case, it's more making sure you use her right. Having the Shadow Queen chase cavalry around all game while the rest of your army gets butchered isn't gonna feel good, so make sure you don't do that.
Definitely not.
And of course, when one goes, so does the other. Suddenly losing a potent spellcaster and a melee beatstick at the wrong time could cost the game, and while she'll probably have wiped out something important by that point, it's the sort of thing that might take you you as a player some getting used to. I feel safe in the assumption that most people will expect only one model to be destroyed when you kill one model, not two of them, so it's just something to consider. It's pretty clearly stated in the rules, so it's not like GW is hiding it. You just have to get used to the fact that two models have the same pool of HP. Honestly though, that's about all I can say is bad for her tabletop stuff. Yeah, a degrading stat line makes her weaker over time, but her elven form doesn't have one, and she's still disgustingly powerful even as she drops down. I can't even say you need to worry about the enemy focusing everything on her or her weaker elven form, because if they do, they're gonna hit that wall of not being able to cause any more wounds that turn. And to be clear, it's an entire turn this lasts for, not just a single phase. This is the shortest rules con phase I've ever done, because there just isn't much bad to say about her. The best bet you have for dealing with her quickly is managing to inflict wounds on her during both of the player's turns, since those are technically separate turns, but even then, that's 2 turns for her to smash your army to pieces with impunity. I mean, for God's sake, the biggest complaint I have is that I don't understand why Morathi Kane even has her own hit point stat. I feel like I'm missing something that'll either let you snipe Morathi or give them a technical total of 18 wounds, but I can't figure out what. If I'm missing something glaringly obvious, please let me know. She's also, of course, in Warhammer Total War. For the short and sweet of that, you can recruit a small number of DMATs to her faction, and she causes Slanesh corruption, showing that CA is going for the older approach to her lore. Her voice in the game's the sort of thing to make an appearance in the dreams you don't tell people about. Her model is one slightly adjusted piece of armor away from demonetization, and she's a powerful casting lord that can unlock a flying mount with everything around her starting area she needs to have a solid first 20 turns. The downside of this is that all her neighbors hate her, with the starting pact with Mazdamundi almost certainly not going to last much longer than that, while Ulthuan is about 5 feet to her right. The Usur do not like Morathi, and Tyrion is sooner or later going to launch a crusade to rip you to pieces, while the Lizardmen do the same from the south, and Kislev of all factions does it from the north. If you're going to play Morathi in Total War, understand you are playing Dark Elf Techless. And with that, we have Morathi. Sorceress Supreme, Evil Woman, Warhammer's most attractive female character, and second most attractive character overall. I'm sure you can figure out who I put in first.
There it is, his first love. Carl.
Thank you as always to my wonderful channel members. I can't think of a single comparison joke for this video because everything I come up with is completely awful. So how about I just say thank you for the support. If you'd like to support the channel, feel free to subscribe or become a member. Either way, thank you for watching and take care out there. Alright, end of the video. Almost everyone is gone by this point, and everyone left is probably going to keep watching my stuff no matter what I do. I would just like to take this moment to say, I don't blame Malekith in the slightest, and in his shoes, I would too. I mean, come on, do you see her in Total War? She's just walking around a winter wasteland with those grippers hanging out. I cannot help being this down bad, man. You know...
Wow. Aurelia, I can't wait to destroy her. Pancreas, I can't wait for her to destroy me. Yeah, nope, I want her gone. I want her gone. Yeah, no. Shameful. Should not keep those dogs out. Oh my gosh. Incredible. But I agree, Karl Franz, he's the better beauty. The better beauty in my opinion. That's my friend. Yes. Yes, I have learned things about my friend. Down bad and based. Who needs dignity anyways? Oh my gosh. Yeah, no, don't give out your don't give out free feet pics. Just don't do it. Pancreas once said that if he was on a date with Morathi and if Karl Franz asked him for help in a fight, he would take a picture of Morathi's feet, then run to help Karl. Not the feet. Not the feet. That's worse. That's so bad. Not the feet. Oh my gosh. Not the feet. It's terrible. Terrible. Okay, this next one is Alariel the Radiant. Stim simping for the Beastman is still better than a single foot fetishist. I agree. Well, okay, so like here's a thought though. The beastmen have beast parts to them. They have animal parts, like heads and hooves and things. But at least the people who like feet, it's like a human. So like obviously liking the beastmen is not necessarily a gateway to anything. I'm not going to say what that is, you all know. But like, which one is more of a crime? Like, if you broke it down into its components, I would say feet is better. But yeah. Don't worry, I drank my water earlier. I'm just saying, if we're breaking it down to like the very base components, I think liking feet is better. No. I know, and I also know that people who like feet, it can get really bad. I'm fully aware that I am a sweet summer child and I have no actual reference for the things people do, but there are things that are worse. Man, everyone's spraying me now. I didn't even say, I'm not even being down bad here. I'm not even being down bad here. What the heck? I'm just saying it like it is. Oh, is Exterminatus disabled? Oops. Oh yeah, because it's one of the memes. It's because we're reacting to stuff. Oh my gosh. Stim being down bad for Beastman is just a side effect of the smut novel she made the mistake of reading. Wait. No, okay. Grand Tourist. Do you... Oh no. Please don't tell me it is the, Morning Glory Milking Farm that I've heard a lot about? Is that the book she read? Do you happen to know? Is it that one? Good. It's probably best for the best. It's probably for the best. That's the one? Yeah, that's what I thought. All right. You guys get to learn. You're gonna learn something today. All right. Man, this is going in my browser history. I hate this. All right. 1 second. You guys are learning a thing. I will let you know. This is not my thing in the slightest. This is a book cover of the story that I told you guys, Morning Glory Milking Farm. I heard a synopsis of it because I was like, what the heck are women reading nowadays? Okay. Look, guys, you can't shut me up. You can't shut me up. Okay. Long story short, I will... It's basically, it's this lady, she has debt, and she lives in like a world where it's like the real world kind of mixed with a fantasy world, and she gets a really good job Yeah, I'm sorry. I have to explain for the people. She gets paid to milk minotaurs. Male minotaurs, because apparently the milk, obviously it's milk, is like really good for medicinal purposes. It like actually is. Yes, the milk, of course, it's milk. And then she ends up falling in love with one of her clients. But like he has the bull and face of a minotaur. Skaven. Nerix, the answer is Skaven. It's worse. No, it honestly, okay, full disclosure, the only reason I know about this is because I watched a reaction of a reaction, someone explaining the premise of the book. Thank you, Jonah, for the super chat. I'm not gonna get into it anymore. That was it. That's all I had. But basically, yeah, she falls in love with him, and they clearly do the nasty. Sure, I actually didn't read the book. I actually didn't. I saw a video of like a content creator I like reacting to it, and I was like, huh, let me look at this. Like, and I was like, bro, because I'll level with all of you. I read oh, I was like, what? Why was my brain? Yeah, so it's a shoe on head video, and I think I happened to watch like another creator watching it, whatever. I read the A Court of Thorns and Roses books, and like it's got like it progresses in the smut, and I regret reading those. So I was really curious, because that was several years ago now, so I was like, man, how far have things gone? Because it seems like everything's kind of leaning towards the smut direction. Regrettably, I don't think that's really good for people. Anyways, so when I found out about this, I was mortified. It's like 30 minutes of what's wrong with women. Yeah, honestly. I ask myself that question sometimes too. Just like, okay. Okay. But I'm not reading it. I'm not reading it. The synopsis was enough for me. And yeah. No, I'm not normally, I don't normally get into this subject. It was just yes, the cover does say monster bait romance. Yeah, it's romance in the loosest sense. Yeah, honestly, I do think it's kind of, it's not a great thing for society that there's a ton of these books. I mean, they always existed, let's be honest. To some extent they existed, but it's now more commonplace and like acceptable for women to read them in public, and I don't support the reading of those. I think it can set you up for some pretty bad expectations. I say that as someone who developed some bad expectations as a result of reading one of these. I am not cured of this, but like it gives you, honestly, it can do that. Still a better love story than Twilight? No, Twilight's better. Sorry, Derek. This is... Oh, Derek, you're gonna be so sad. We were just talking about Marathi. Man. Anyways, Twilight is better than that. Because I will say, as someone who read Twilight, at least Edward, like, was respectful of Bella. Yeah, it was kind of, you know, it's cheesy and teenagey and girly, but at least it was like appropriate relationship. Well, kind of, but also not. When the 100-plus-year-old man sees the 18-year-old girl, he like, dang girl, kind of cute. And it's the trope as old as time. Morathi and Malekith are better than Twilight. Ew, no. 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 We didn't talk any more about the book. It was just like I was explaining. I need an adult. Fair. Sometimes I feel like I need an adult. Oh my gosh. There you go. Now that's your context. So I'm sure that is the book that Stim read that got her into liking Beastmen. I won't say any more about that. I just got here what was happening. We were talking about whether Pancreas's love for Morathi's feet is worse than my friend Stim's love for Beastmen. That's where we were. But now we're going to watch the next video of our next elf boss babe from fantasy. Thank you for taking away my faith in society. No, it's okay. It's not like that. Now we're gonna have the wholesome, more wholesome queen, hopefully. Gaslight, gatekeep, girl boss, goddess. In case you guys didn't know, that's like, you know, Pokemon and how there's like evolutions. That's kind of how it goes for girls. Yep, but they miss Queen. Queen's in there somewhere.
In the timeless words of Beyonce,
how was that for volume? Was it good? We always do a little check. Good, good, good. I see a couple goods. Am I just testing you? Yes, I am testing you. Make sure you don't stray towards chaos. Alright, we're doing it.
in the timeless words of Beyonce, girls, they run the world. And in the lands of the elves and Warhammer fantasy, no truer words have ever been spoken. Getting down to the nitty-gritty of things, you can more or less pin the entirety of the Dark Elves and everything they've ever done on Morathi. She's the one who refounded the pleasure cults, leading to many high elves sliding into decadence, and when her son Malekith was dealing with them, she convinced him to join their side using methods not suited for discussion within the first minute of a YouTube video. And more to the point for this video, the Everqueen of the High Elves. There's a lot of lore that goes back and forth a bit on who the real powerhouse of Ulthuan is between the Phoenix King and the Everqueen. The Phoenix King usually makes most of the laws and stuff that govern the High Elves, for instance. But the Everqueen can certainly play politics when needed, and also keeps the spiritual health of Ulthuan safe. And in a fantasy setting, that is kind of important to do. I
do think it's cool that there's like a little division of power like that. I do like the way that that is set up. When are we gonna watch the Sigwald video? I don't know. Maybe next time? Maybe next time? Next week, maybe? Next week, perhaps? I just saw the Morathi video. Excuse me. I just saw the Morathi video and I wanted to watch it because I thought it was funny. But thank you for the super chat, Kristen.
There's straight up a ritual they gotta do to keep the moon from crashing into the planet. That's important, and depending on how you read it, you can argue that the Phoenix King really just exists to make Babi with the Ever Queen, so the next one can exist, and then they both just go their separate ways to do whatever. No one said they have to love each other after all, they can go do their own thing after the fact. And then we get Ever Queens like today's subject, Auriel. Gaslight, gatekeep, girl boss, incarnate. She's beauty, she's grace, and she's gonna get me called woke on Twitter with this video. But that's
what? I heard that right, correct?
She's beauty, she's grace, and she's gonna get me called woke on Twitter with this video. But that's okay, because if that's the price I pay to talk about elves, then so be it. Sit down and listen about Auriel the Radiant, a My Little Pony character who got lost in the gritty world of Warhammer Fantasy. But let's look at that word first.
It does sound like a My Little Pony
Everqueen.
Character name.
It's got ever in the name. You know what else has ever as part of the word? Forever. And you know what's good for forever? Knowledge. Like the knowledge you can get from Brilliant, the sponsor of this video.
Pank.
Brilliant is where you go to learn data science, math, computer science, and so much more with interactive lessons that are actually fun to go through. You want to sit through a math class in school? Of course you don't. No one does. The person who wants to do that doesn't exist. But on Brilliant, that sort of thing is engaging. You aren't going to be falling asleep at your computer. You'll actually be interested in learning, because Brilliant knows that learning and fun can go hand in hand. They're hands-on lessons that teach you how to solve problems, not just memorize them. And it's all totally stress-free, because there's no time crunch or obligation to study 40 hours a week like it's your job. Got 5 minutes on the train? Load up Brilliant. That's more than fine. Got 40 hours a week? Well, that's just fantastic. If you got the time, then Brilliant's going to make sure you learn your best. Not sure where to start? Well, if so, might I recommend exploring data visually? It's always handy to have some skills with handling data. You can make useful data out of damn near anything, so getting a start on learning it properly can only help.
True.
And if all that isn't enough to convince you, how about
learning how to read graphs, statistics, and that sort of thing is like, it cannot be understated. Some people don't know how to read graphs, and they don't know what information is being presented to them. It's crazy.
this. Using my link in the description and pinned comment, you can get yourself 20% off your annual plan with Brilliant. Even better, the first 30 days are a completely free trial. That's https://brilliant.org/pancreasnowork/ for both of the above offers. Learning more is never a bad thing, so sign up for Brilliant today and keep your brain in tip-top shape. Now then, time to beeline it for the Sword of Cain. Auriel the Radiant's backstory is both that of someone destined for greatness by birth, and also that of someone who was so far out of their depth you can't help but feel bad for them. As with all Everqueens, she was the child of the previous one, an elf named Estriel. When her mother finally died, she would receive the composite soul of the previous Everqueens as well as Isha's power, becoming the next in a long line of Everqueens to help safeguard Ulthuan. As a little chibi elf, she was taken away from her mother and grew up in secrecy, as is tradition for the Everqueens. Her mother during this time was tragically assassinated by Dark Elves, and aside from the obvious problem of her mother being murdered, in elf years she was like 15 years old tops. But now she had to get the power of a goddess far before she was ready to take it on, as well as co-rulership over the entire continent of Ulthuan. Sink or swim is a pretty good way to describe Auriel's early life. But wait, we're not done yet. That Dark Elf assassination wasn't just a funny little isolated prank they were pulling out of boredom. Malekith was beginning yet another invasion of Ulthuan. He was determined to get his birthright that wasn't actually his birthright, but Mommy Dearest was putting the thought into his head while he was putting his penis in her, so he was determined to get his way. Almost immediately after being crowned Everqueen, Auriel had to deal with the largest Dark Elf invasion of Ulthuan ever attempted, which was assisted by the forces of Chaos getting in on the fun as Dark Elf allies. And this invasion was not going well for the High Elves in the early stages. Dark Elves on their own are already brutal warriors, and now they were being assisted by Chaos warriors and demons. In fact, her coronation for all intents and purposes had its ending marked by a Dark Elf army interrupting it to come and take out the next Everqueen before she could come into her own. Auriel is many things, but at this point she's not much of a warrior, so despite her maiden guard throwing themselves into battle, it looked like Auriel was not to be long for the world. Thankfully for her and the narrative, however, Tyrion was here as well. And Tyrion is the heir of Anarion and an all-around kick-ass fighter. He grabbed Auriel, grabbed his sword, and stabbed any Dark Elf who got in their way. A Witch Elf stabbed him with a poisoned blade, but Tyrion powered through and escaped with Aurelia,
Good job.
dark elves and demons hot on their trail. Everyone in Ulthuan, however, assumed that the pair was dead. This was worse than just being the morale sinker of having your leader assassinated too, because of how the Everqueen is responsible for the High Elves' spiritual health. If she's missing or dead, the High Elves are physically weakened. Elf magic nonsense, sure, but it's what they have to deal with. So everyone thinking she's dead means everyone has a sad so big it degrades their combat effect.
Oh, dang, so they placeboed themselves into making it worse, because like, oh, if she didn't die, so it didn't really weaken it, but they thought she died, so they basically convinced themselves to have less power. Incredible.
Everyone, that is, except for our favorite magical twink, Teclis. Him and Tyrion being elf twins mean they have some sort of psychic link or whatever, and Teclis knew his brother wasn't dead because of it. And if Tyrion isn't dead, that means Alariel probably isn't either. So with his newly forged sword and new magical crown, he dragged his tuberculosis-ridden ass over to where Alariel and a now suffering from the poison Tyrion were about to bite the bullet by way of the Keeper of Secrets Nakari. And then Nakari exploded, because before the end times there wasn't a problem alive that Teclis couldn't solve by blasting it to Kingdom Come with magic. Alariel and Tyrion got healed up, Alariel gave Teclis his magical staff Lilith, and then the trio went on to Finnival Plain, where the final desperate stand of the High Elves was taking place. The upside of that magical Everqueen elf nonsense is now that they saw their Everqueen returned and healthy, the High Elves present had a fire lit in their hearts and fought like men possessed. Better than men possessed in all honesty, because there were Chaos Warriors here and they ripped those guys apart like paper mache. With Alariel present, the Maiden Guard once more formed up alongside the rest of the High Elf elite, and the Dark Elves and Chaotic Forces were sent packing. Although even in her video, I'm still gonna play favorites a little bit here. Teclis did most of the heavy lifting. He made Malekith so afraid of him the Witch King threw himself into the realm of chaos to escape, and every Dark Elf that got near him was obliterated. Though in all fairness,
cool,
without
I like
Alariel's
him.
presence, none of the elves fighting would have been at their A-game. Just by virtue of her being safe and sound, let alone fighting next to them, is that much of a morale booster and force multiplier.
That's
and at some
crazy to
point
me.
around this time, Tyrion showed her his Sword of Cain and they made Aliathra. We'll come back to her later. Now I might as well double dip a bit, since a video about Alariel is going to be about the Everqueen position in general. So here's a bit of the responsibilities an Everqueen has, and you can assume Alariel tends to all of them. There was that whole business with keeping the moon from crashing into the world, gotta do that every 10 years. She has to go all the way to the Tower of the Sun located near Inn, so this isn't exactly a small little trip. Once a year, she also has to go into the mountains around Ulthuan known as the Anuli to keep Slaanesh demons out of the dreams of the High Elves. The Everqueen is also in charge of elf fertility rituals, which is important because elves do not frequently have children and are an overall dying race. Shinzo Abe would be proud, I'm sure.
Yes, Shinzo Abe, yes. Yes. You gotta do it for Shinzo.
Sure. The fertility is beyond just the elves, though. Remember, the goddess soul bits inside of Alariel are that of Isha, the goddess of fertility and life. The health of Ulthuan's food supply is also one of her responsibilities, so if you enjoy food, you better hope Alariel is on top of things. But it gets even more extreme than that, because her very mood can determine the weather, especially in the home province of the Everqueen called Averlorn. When she's in a good mood, it's a wonderful spring day and the land is filled with singing elves and dancing bards and all sorts of that lovey-dovey nonsense. When she's in a bad mood, it's a scorching summer day in the Sahara, or a nice and sunny Kisleviite winter for all the poor High Elves. It is in the interest of the High Elves to keep Alariel happy, if only so their home doesn't go through every climate disaster all at once.
I mean,
the
fair.
Everqueen's Court of Averlorn is also the closest thing to paradise in the Warhammer world, including the afterlife. And I wasn't joking about it being filled with the songs of carefree elves and bards. When they aren't being called to war as the High Elves tend to be, this is the Garden of Eden. There's friendly and mischievous nature spirits, and the elves almost all live in mobile tent cities, and there's a general vibe of a never-ending party. Not a Fall of the Eldar grade party, though. These elves are just having a good time. Now, of course, there's also all kinds of scheming and politics going on, because these are still the High Elves. Depending on the fellas in question, complimenting someone's poem about how beautiful the landscape is can also be a veiled insult on how Alariel actually hates their guts. It really is a nice place, though, and for all that it is hippie paradise, the politics that happen here are just as important as those in Lothern with the Phoenix King. And very worth noting is that Alariel the Radiant, in spite of being the Everqueen with all the domestic responsibilities that entails, is a playable model on the tabletop. She is not the kind of elf to just stick to her fertility duties and tend to Ulthuan's spiritual health. She's ready to get out there and take names at a moment's notice. Case in point, one time there was a Slaanesh invasion on Ulthuan. Morathi was involved naturally, and Alariel was put in a coma through an otherwise failed assassination attempt. When she came back to the waking world, it was actually the first time the power of the Everqueen within her truly awoke as well. Auriel, not being one to mess around, summoned an army of dryads and went into the heart of the battle. The Slaanesh champion leading the invasion sought her out for a variety of reasons, both tactical and Slaaneshi, but before he could so much as try and lay a finger on her, she just grabbed his hand. In an instant, no more Slaanesh corruption. She saved the man's soul just like that. Of course, Slaanesh is rather...
She is like the opposite of Morathi. She can make me worse, and then it's like, no, I can heal you. Beautiful, beautiful. As women should be. I'll heal you. I'll make you better.
Territorial about her toys, so she started pouring her power into the dude while Auriel was as well, and they got into a bit of a tug of war over the guy's soul. Eventually, Auriel pulled out and the dude's soulless body turned into a massive chaos spawn, but I think that's more or less completely irrelevant. Irrelevant to showcasing her power anyways. They was still pretty relevant to the battle and they had to kill it. Auriel went toe-to-toe with Slaanesh in a magical tug of...
Poor guy, but he did, you know... He knew who he was siding with.
War. Not a greater demon of Slaanesh, or the winds of magic, which were corrupted by Slaanesh. She fought Slaanesh one-on-one and got what she wanted out of it. Also worth noting is that even though Auriel really wanted to kill him, she refused to, because if she could restore life rather than take it, she'll do that every time.
I mean,
Isn't
that makes
cheerful
sense.
And noble? The various elves of Ulthuan
that.
are rather divided on how to feel about Auriel going on the warpath as often as she does. For those against it, part of it is that she's going against tradition, and the Phoenix King is supposed to be the one handling the war, and going against tradition is so uncultured that it gives the elves physical pain, yada yada yada. But on rather more reasonable notes, some of them fear that it's a sign Isha is growing more warlike as time goes on. And you know what? Fair complaint. If I saw the embodiment of my mother goddess who's all about love and happiness and nature rip a dude in half, I would probably also be concerned about the future.
Yes.
And worst of all is that if the Everqueen is slain, reality starts breaking down a bit. Ulthuan basically just pulls from the mystery box for what the weather is going to be like, so that's a nightmare to deal with. All non-Druchii elves enter a state of intense grief, even the Wood Elves. It's so extreme that even people like humans who have been influenced by the High Elves feel an inexplicable sense of sadness. So again, given all of that, I sorta get why you wouldn't want her on the battlefield. If she dies, you're instantly depressed on the spot, and a tornado is ripping through the area.
And I also wonder... I also wonder if, like, what happens if she dies and she doesn't have a, you know, a daughter? Because obviously she was very young when she became the Everqueen. So I wonder what happens when there's no daughter.
There's also the fact she oftentimes seems to be going against what Finnabar has set in motion, but that's less significant and something that happens with every Everqueen at some point. The High Elves are all about duality, so if anything, the Everqueen and Phoenix King not being in perfect sync is what they want. For all they complain about her though, when Auriel takes to the battlefield, it's a massive boost to the High Elves overall, so those directly around her at least won't complain in earshot. She's their queen and goddess, and no, for once that isn't just me being a simp for pointy ears, it's very literal here. And while she is a lore of life wizard, being Isha's representative and all, she's a lore of life wizard that can cause a forest to pop up out of nowhere and swallow your entire army whole. She keeps her troops healthy and energized, she can cause the enemy army to be devoured by nature, and since she's part Isha, dryads and treekin just love her and help her out whenever they can.
I did see, yes, I did hear him say that she did have a daughter, but I'm thinking like, oh, well, what if she happened to not and then she got murked? That's what I was curious about.
And since she's part Isha, dryads and treekin just love her and help her out whenever they can. As far as she's concerned, this is all her duty, and since her career as Everqueen began with her mother being assassinated and her nearly being assassinated twice, she's not one to shy away from combat. Plus, against chaos or the undead, she can more or less just snap her fingers and make the problem go away. If keeping Ulthuan's spiritual health means she's gotta crack some skulls, she'll get right to it. And going back to that duality thing the Asur love, Auriel being the warmonger, while Finnabar is certainly the more diplomatic one, does fit with that worldview. Eventually, Auriel had her daughter named Aliathra. Supposedly her and Finnabar's kid, she was actually her and Tyrion's kid, like I said earlier. For the purposes of Aliathra becoming the next Everqueen, there was no issues there. It does mean that the future Everqueen would eventually have the Curse of Anarion, though, so that would be a little bit awkward. Aliathra was a pretty cool gal, though. She was a great diplomat, in part by virtue of just how unflinchingly positive and cheery she was. Even the dwarfs loved her. She was the kind of elf that would give their weary race new hope for the future, in spite of all the tragedy and conflict the Asur had been through up to this point. Have I put up enough death flags yet? I'm worried that—
Yeah, I wondered. Not Pyrrha. I liked Pyrrha. Should have known. Pyrrhic victory and such. Aww.
There's a few people who either don't know Aliathra's role in the end times or are missing my nice and subtle hints. So anyways, as the end times begin, Manfred does his best to try and star in an episode of To Catch a Predator and kidnaps Aliathra. Tyrion responds to this by being himself and setting out to murder everything in his way. Alarielle has a rather more diplomatic approach. She goes to Athel Loren, and in exchange for trying to heal Ariel and the rotting Oak of Ages, they'd send a military force to help rescue Aliathra. Hey, diplomatic route doesn't necessarily mean the peaceful one. War is diplomacy. At one point, this turns into—
Yes, if those of you who have not watched me play Total War, I was not using the diplomacy tab because I was told to look for green on the color bar, but I had changed my UI to be yellow. So everything that was green ended up being yellow. So I never used diplomacy for the longest time. So, you know. Yeah, there's no diplomacy, only war. How? Well, okay, so I was playing with Lore Master of Sotek, and all he told me is, says, hey, use your diplomacy tab. If there is anything that shows up green, you want to do it. And I was like, okay, cool. But I changed my color so it was yellow, so it, you know, matches my model and my armor. And as a result, it changed other parts of the interface, so it was yellow. And because it was never green, I never clicked on it. He never said that it had to be a positive number. If he had said that, I would have done it, but I didn't know. Yeah, it's Total War, not Total Diplomacy. Yeah, it was a very interesting time when we discovered that. Anyways,
her absorbing Ariel as well as the rest—
Hang on, let me go back.
Force to help rescue Aliathra. Hey, diplomatic route doesn't necessarily mean the peaceful one. War is diplomacy. At one point, this turns into her absorbing Ariel as well as the rest of Isha into herself. She then takes a bit of a backseat for a while, during which time her daughter is unable to be rescued and becomes one of the sacrifices used to resurrect Nagash. Rest in peace, Aliathra. You were a positive, happy-go-lucky little chibi elf, so naturally your only possible fate was a horrible, horrible death. At least you went out like a badass by refusing to rise to Manfred's taunts and making him look petty and stupid. It was enough to even impress Arkan. Eventually, Alarielle returns home to find out that Malekith is apparently the rightful Phoenix King now, and there's a whole lot of people not too happy with that. She marries him in order to keep some semblance of peace and unity, which, while stupid, is also probably the best of a whole lot of bad options. I imagine she was just trying to keep as much unity amongst all the elves now as possible, given that chaos was invading and Nagash had just come back. This does make Tyrion go nuts, though. His lover married his worst enemy, his daughter is dead, his friend Finnabar is dead, and it turns out his brother was the one to arrange quite a good portion of all of this in order to stop chaos. I can't blame him for being a little bit upsetty spaghetti. He drew the Sword of Cain and starts slaughtering elves left and right. Alarielle takes on Marathi, who in her madness thought Tyrion was her boy toy and Aryan reborn, and at one point she just starts turning elves into trees. Tyrion is eventually dealt with, Teclis tries to bind the winds of magic to all the elves around him, Marathi mucks it up, and he can only bind light to his staff, life to Alarielle, and shadow to Malekith. Ulthuan then sinks, and all the elves have to learn how to get along in Athel Loren. Nagash shows up, offers Manfred on a silver platter, and everyone accepts. Alarielle and Tyrion especially, because Manfred sort of got their daughter killed to resurrect him. Naturally, Nagash taunts Alariel and Tyrion over this, because he is just awful, but they keep their cool. Alariel more than Tyrion. Tyrion wasn't exactly happy, but he was willing to suck it up given the circumstances. Speaking of, though, Alariel was pretty much the only elf willing to talk to Tyrion at this point, given his stunt with the Sword of Cain. During this time, Be'lakor wandered in and doomed the Plan backup world, and as revenge, they used Alariel's little ruby in her tiara to trap him. He eventually got free because he's doing stuff in AOS, but hey, it was good going for a bit. It came time for one final effort to save the world, and blah blah blah, Manfred stabs Gelt, ritual fails, world's consumed by chaos, and everyone dies. At least Alariel got to have a somewhat peaceful end, all things considered. Her and Tyrion held hands while chaos consumed the world.
Oh.
It was nice. When she returned...
Unprotected hand-holding? Unacceptable.
In Age of Sigmar, she was the goddess of the realm of life, Gairen. Sigmar found her hibernating like a leafy bear and woke her up, since it was already like 1 in the afternoon and they had things to do. She was grateful enough towards Sigmar and joined his pantheon, and together they helped form civilization in the mortal realms, as all the gods in the Age of Myth did. Although sadly, Alariel wasn't quite the same as before. The end times, the era between the two settings, and waking up alone had pretty badly traumatized her, and she would rarely spend time with her fellow deities. As far as I know, for instance, there's no indication that her and Tyrion have any sort of bond any longer. She wasn't even involved in helping get elf souls out of Slaanesh, and for God's sake, even Malekith and Morathi were helping with that. Instead, she planted soul pods. Old souls from fantasy, new souls from AOS, souls she found lying in a dumpster somewhere. All over Gairen, she planted these soul pods, giving birth to the Sylvaneth. There were also a number of normal elves who came to live under Alariel's protection, and all was good for a while. She even had another kid in a weird wood elf tree lady kind of way. Now make sure to pay real close attention to the mechanics of this in case it ever comes up in your own life. The way a life goddess reproduces is to cut off her hand, plant it in the ground, and eventually out pops a happy-go-lucky tree girl called the Lady of Vines. She was filled with all the cheer and energy Alariel had lost, and she reminds me of Aliathra. So yeah, she fucking dies when Nurgle decides Alariel is going in the jar like Isha did in 40K. Alariel's down another daughter now, big rip. Then, as Nurgle is taking over Gairen to make it all gross and icky, she dies. Most of the elves living with the Sylvaneth also fled for their own safety, so now they were down a leader and all of their friends. The Sigmarines, who had just recently taken reality by storm, replanted her own soul pod, and when she reawoke, she was properly ready to get back in the game. She realized retreating back into only protect Gairen, A, wasn't sustainable, and B, was the same abandonment stunt the elves pulled on her. She ultimately forgave those new elves, although many of the Sylvaneth haven't, remade the Lady of Vines, replaced her hand with one made out of living wood, and then marched straight into the mostly Khorne-controlled realm of fire. And Khorne's forces, in spite of putting up a good fight, were getting crushed. In spite of Khornates liking axes, they're a bit less effective on trees that move and beat you to death. Alariel, for her part, was the wrath of nature given humanoid form, crushing and blasting foes all across the battlefield. The battle ended with Alariel and the Sylvaneth, much like Sigmar and his Stormcast, pushing back the forces of chaos and beginning a campaign to not only secure Gairen, but the rest of the mortal realms.
Wow, that is quite the fight. Ah, welcome in, Raiders. Welcome in. I hope you had a good stream. My name is Aurelia. I'm a Warhammer Vtuber. We are watching some more Warhammer Fantasy lore by Pancreas No Work. I mainly dabble in 40K stuff, but we're learning a bit of fantasy today. So welcome in, welcome in. Oh, and Gingerbread Man, thank you for the super chat. Elves will never be friends, foul undead. Nagash, okay, what if I gift wrap Manfred and hand him over to you? Elves. Okay, that's a good gift. Yeah, yes. Good gift. But yeah, guys, hope you had a good stream. What were you up to? I hope you guys had fun. I need some thankwall to cleanse myself of all this elf thing filth once this is over. Well, unfortunately, we got more elf stuff after this. We got Eldar. We're going 40K with the Eldar. So. Anyways, hang on.
Oh, and
why does it do that? I don't like that. Okay. We shall continue.
And beginning a campaign to not only secure Gairen, but the rest of the mortal realms. Oh, and she also brought back Draika. You know, Draika, the insane dryad lady that hindered the forces of order during the end times at every possible opportunity. Desperate times and all that, I guess. As time has gone on in the Age of Sigmar, she's made multiple appearances of varying levels of impact.
I like her
Relatively
giant
early
beetle.
on in the setting's history, she brokered peace between her Sylvaneth children and the cities of Sigmar's city of Greywater Fastness. It's a 19th century industrialist wet dream, which unfortunately means it's a nightmare of factory pollution. She was able to get them to somewhat limit their polluting in exchange for the Sylvaneth not wiping them off the map, although conflict does occasionally break out still. In Broken Realms, she opened the realm gates to the 8 points to allow a joint Stormcast and Daughters of Cain assault. Very interestingly, she only did it when Morathi asked her to and refused Sigmar at first, because apparently the Daughters of Cain had been staunch allies with the Sylvaneth for some time.
That seems like an odd mashup. I wouldn't have pegged that there. Oh, and happy birthday. I hope you had a good one. You like Ultramarines and Tau? Okay. I see ya. I'm a Custodes girl, Blood Angels, and Eldar myself.
I guess her and Morathi don't quite hate each other as much anymore, which is new.
Yeah,
at some point she
it's
planted
weird.
a seed that was the positive aspects of the old elf god Kurnos to be her consort, renamed Kurnoth. The negative aspects of him are in a place called the Weld, slowly gathering worshippers and gaining power all on its own. She is aware and trying to deal with this, but there's a lot on her plate, so it isn't going too well. As an aside, she's now cucked Tyrion in 2 settings. When Nagash was doing his third
Yikes.
kill everything ever ritual, she told Teclis not to worry about it too much at first, since life in her own power was soon to overtake that of Death and Nagash. Teclis was understandably not willing to wait for whatever mystic BS she was on about to happen, so she gave him a hand. And after Teclis blew apart Nagash, she performed her own ritual to cleanse the death energy from reality and replace it with life energy. It worked with a resounding success, finally putting an end to the Necroquake. Unfortunately, it worked too well and freed the ancient god of destruction Kragnos from his prison. She's done rather little in the way of preventing any resulting catastrophes from this, but she is preoccupied with corrupted seed Sigmar hidden Gyrin that Nurgle's forces are using, so fair's fair, I guess. She made a rain shower cleanse the city of Nurgle corruption, and has overall been a real force for good in the mortal realms ever since her reemergence as a true warrior goddess. As always, let's wrap up with Duardon Alariel for Age of Sigmar. For lore positives, she's both a goddess, queen, and factional leader. Same as she was in fantasy, to be honest. So fights with her aren't just going to be grand-scale encounters with the largest of armies. You've got your faction leader throwing down and showing that she isn't no slouch. Having a playable deity on the field of battle is always spectacular, and Alariel is no exception. She's also a returning character from fantasy, so with her you get to follow a character whose story has been going strong for decades. That being said, in personality she's pretty different from who she once was, and the mortal realms have turned her into a unique character in AOS rather than just Alariel ported over from fantasy. Not that I'd have much in the ways of issue with that, but it is cool to see her change with the setting. She's definitely for you if you want your army to be firmly in the good aligned side of things. The Sylvaneth do sometimes go all Athel Lauren on outsiders and kill them for being in the wrong part of town, but Alariel for her part doesn't do much of that. Ever since her second rebirth, she's been happy to work with outsiders as needs dictate. For internal faction relations, she's a mother to all the Sylvaneth. They adore her and follow her every wish. If she says they're going to be the good guys and play nice with Sigmar's lot, then that's what they'll do. She in turn does everything she possibly can to keep them safe. Despite everything, she's still a caring individual who will keep her children safe to the best of her ability. Alariel takes to the battlefield because her children and the forces of order need her to, which is very heroic. And most prominently for the lore positives I see, she's a goddess who can well and truly fight back. Yes, she died. Yes, she went through some mental anguish that's caused some problems, but in fantasy she went toe-to-toe with Sinesh and held her own, and she's only gotten stronger since. So if you want to show what the power of a god can really do, she's perfect for it. Only surpassed by Nagash, of course, for such is his power. For tabletop positives, her basic stat line is 16 HP, a 14-inch move, 5 control, and a 3-up save. She's pretty tanky all things considered, especially with her Life Bloom ability that gives her the potential to heal 2d3 wounds with no strings attached. She can do that in any hero phase too, which makes it all the more versatile a healing ability. You can pretty safely put Alariel in some tricky situations knowing she'll probably be just fine. She's also a good caster, being able to cast 3 spells. Her Metamorphosis spell lets her deal some decent damage, and if you kill the enemy with it, you can place a free tree. The Sylvaneth love their goddamn trees, so this is a good spell. Her healing ability can also be used to instead give her +1 to her casting rolls, so if she's either not taken too many wounds or it's early in the battle, she can be a proper magical menace. She can bring the pain just fine in more mundane combat too. Her ranged attack isn't anything too special, but it can can get an early snipe in on a bigger character you might be using Aurelia to deal with. Her spear in melee has 5 attacks with 3s to hit and wound, Ren 2, and deals 2 damage.
Wait, is Wardroth the name of her beetle? I love that. I think that's the name of her beetle.
Her beetle, and by the way she rides a big beetle now, only hits on a 4-up, but it wounds on a 2-up, has 6 attacks until she takes pretty big damage, and has Ren 2 and deals 4 damage. She's gonna put the hurt on people that get close to her, and with a total of 11 attacks in melee, she's solid at taking on both characters and tougher troops. With her living battering ram ability, she can also be brutal on the charge if you roll a high charge roll and roll the needed 3-up on it. She does give some army support too, mainly in her healing. In your movement phase, you can pick a destroyed Sylvaneth unit and on a roll of 4-up, bring it back at half strength. If you choose a monster, it takes an auto 8 damage, but it's still back. Necromancy is a lot funnier when it's trees, and you can do just that with her. And last tabletop positive, sweet god, her model is beautiful.
It is.
It's gorgeously designed, wonderfully implemented,
Beetle.
and it is just phenomenal all around. It's aged fantastically for a model as relatively old as this one, and it does so much justice to her. And yes, tall, pretty lady. I prefer my elves to be twinks and goths, but I firmly respect the person who declared Aurelia needed thighs that could crush
I was just about to say she got some big thighs there. I was like, dang, she's a little thick.
to be twinks and goths, but I firmly respect the person who declared Aurelia needed thighs that could crush an entire field of watermelons. Good taste, whoever you are. For lore downsides, it's kind of a shame that the Everqueen plotline is just dead. That whole thing with their child becoming the next one is really cool, but it looks like it died with Aliathra. I don't believe there's been any mention of it, which is made more annoying by the fact she's still called Aurelia the Everqueen. And as is usual with these godly characters, you don't get the more low-key approach with any army she's a part of. This is the goddess of life. She's not got the time to be taking on a random group of a couple beastmen. She's only coming out for the real battles, so if you like lower stakes narratives for your game, maybe sub her out for someone else. You're also fielding a character who strikes me as being high risk for not learning her lessons. Like, she lived through the end times. She saw how it was only the combined efforts of everyone, man, elf, dwarf, and more, that could have saved the world. She was there at Middenheim when the ritual was being cast. She knows that if it wasn't for one asshole betraying them, she'd still have her home world. And yet during the Age of Chaos, she still left Sigmar's pantheon along with everyone else to focus on her own realm, and suffered for it. And I don't want to be rude, partially because I'm not entirely sure I missed a lore blurb somewhere, but she seems to have done it again. When she cast her own big ritual to counter Nagash's, she freed Kragnos. And yet I'm almost positive she hasn't done anything about it. Come on, Aurelia, you really gotta learn to play nice with everyone else properly. This isn't too big of a con, and I'm a pointy-eared fanatic, so I'm not gonna hold it too much against her, but it really doesn't look good on anyone involved when Nagash is the last person to betray someone, and that includes Aurelia here. That does actually remind me of one last combined pro and con. Life is a good counter to death, so if Nagash drives you to rage, having Aurelia in your army is a great way to give the Bone Pope the finger. The opposite side of that coin is having a character in your army and faction that the entire Grand Alliance of Death would probably happily see slaughtered. And chaos. And destruction, most likely. You know, as much as I said that Aurelia is happy to get along with other people now, maybe don't pick her if you want true, actual friends in other factions. They might end up getting cucked like poor Tyrion. For tabletop cons, it's gonna be a pretty short list, because by all means, she appears to be damn good. At 680 points, losing her early on or at a crucial moment is gonna kick your army square in the sack, especially if you're relying on her resurrection abilities to pull some shenanigans with. At smaller point games, she's either not fitting in the army, or you're not going to have much of an army left to fit her in. She's also not quite enough of a beatstick to keep up with the heaviest hitters. Archaon is going to give her some pain, and while in lore her ritual ass-blasted Nagash is out of existence, on the tabletop her spellcasting doesn't hold a candle to his. Speaking of, in fact, I don't think she has any insta-kill protection unless I'm missing something. I hope you pick the correct hand if you're facing Nagash down, because otherwise you just had a third of your entire army flush down the drain with Hand of Dust. This next one is purely a personal taste thing, but I just don't care for the Sylvaneth lore. I don't care about the trees. I do not have wood for the trees. Sure, it's fitting for her lore, but I can't be bothered. So despite being a good wizard, I just find the spells she can cast pretty mediocre. I'm sure there's someone who's gonna hate me for saying that, but I can't bring myself to like the Sylvaneth spell lore no matter how hard I try. Teclis and Nagash have spoiled me on this, I will fully admit. And there we have it. Aurelia the Everqueen. Gaslight Chaos and Dark Elves, Gatekeep Dark Elves out of Ulthuan, and Nurgle out of Gyron, and Girlboss the High Elves and Sylvaneth around to kill people she doesn't like. Oh, I guess there's one final tip. Not gonna do a full do or don't with this one, but if you're not playing as her in Total Warhammer, be very afraid of her. The peace-loving epitome of life and mercy gets no greater joy than beelining it for the Sword of Cain and using it to make a Narian look like a weakling. She isn't Alariel the Radiant in Total Warhammer. She's Alariel Whitestrake, because Nagaroth is going to look like a crater before long if she has her way. Or she'll single-handedly kill Archaon, because she can just decide she's doing that now. Thank you to writer of Rohan / Orange of Drings for this lovely art piece, by the way. Sorry for butchering the ad. It's gameplay accurate. And as always, thank you to my wonderful channel members.
Yay!
You were the life man.
Hi, Arrow Mage. Good to see you. Yes, it was nice seeing you over in the other stream as well. It was a very nice time. You outed me. You outed me. I was just lurking, and you outed me.
To my Alariel, letting me create all sorts of wondrous slop on this platform. If you'd like to support the channel, feel free to subscribe or become a member. Either way, thank you for watching, and take care out there. Hey you, person who stuck around. You get a bonus lore positive for hanging out till the end. By using Alariel, you can rub it into the face of Eldar fans that they have the writers that despise elves. The Eldar have their life goddess stuck in Nurgle's garden, and the Asur / Sylvaneth have theirs regularly taking to the field to destroy anything that threatens them. Isn't it nice to be into fantasy and AOS? Isn't it nice when everyone gets to have fun?
Good video, good video. I like me my elves. And the last one we have is Eldar Propaganda. And depending on if we have time, maybe we'll do another one. But I need some caffeine. I need to get some tea. I need to get some tea really fast. So I need to fill up my water and get tea. So I need like 30 seconds. I'll be right back. I gotta fill up my stuff. Boy, you're not allowed to draw on my face. No more code red. Yes and no. Yes and no. I am trying to do less sugary drinks because I want to hit certain fitness goals. So, unfortunately, I have made the decision to have less Mountain Dew. Currently, I've decided I'm going every other day. I have a dew. So this is just This is just I have green tea instead. You can make it Mountain Dew Zero. Yeah, but it's also like it also will save me money in the long run. It'll also save me money in the long run. So, you know, I have my green tea here. So, okay. It's time for the next video. We are doing, I know Gamer Sups is also sugar-free as well. But it's like, it's a matter of like how much, like, I actually have to check if they have aspartame. Which, by the way, Gamer Sups, my creator code is 20% off this week until like Friday. So take advantage of it now. Yeah. But Gamer Sups is good. I do have that, but there's something about having a nice Mountain Dew. But it's okay. I'll be fine. So. Alright, let's go. It's time for Eldar propaganda.
As Garfield once said in his infinite wisdom, you are not immune to propaganda.
I have not
you can't
seen
run from it,
Hatsune
you can't hide from it,
Garfield
all you can try to
before.
do is be educated on it. And of course, this is just as true in 40K as it is in real life. Pretty much every official thing put out by the Imperium is
Hi, Zoran. Yes, I love my Mountain Dew, my refreshing syrup candy drink. It's amazing. I love it. It's so delicious. It's so good. Alas. Zoran, also, you need to eat. You need to eat. If you haven't eaten already, I feel the urge to make sure you've eaten today. Okay? Make sure you've had food. We need to play Rat Game with Pank at some point. Wait, hang on. Yes, we need to do that. We got to do that. I'm playing a bit with him. I'm playing Rat Game with him next week. We should set up something cuz I want to keep playing Vermintide. It would be a lot of fun. Let's see. Let me just make a little note for myself. I'm just gonna send Rat Game. There's the note. We'll put something together because we definitely should play. Put my OBS up. Well, you should eat. You dodged my question. You should eat. Oh, and to address the super chat I have from Super Orlock, I love and respect everyone. Plain and simple. Plain and simple. Anyways, let us continue.
propaganda. You can argue all
I'm gonna go back.
hide from it, all you can try to do is be educated on it. And of course, this is just as true in 40K as it is in real life. Pretty much every official thing put out by the Imperium is propaganda. You can argue all day long about how valid the propaganda being put forth is, but it's still propaganda. The Imperium wants you to abhor the Xenos, the mutant, and the heretic. The official government is trying to get you to think X way, so it's propaganda. But what if I don't want to listen to the Imperium's propaganda? Every faction deserves to have their own PR department, even if it's got to be out of universe.
True.
The Tau have their own, and it's pretty successful, judging by how many worlds they've taken without a fight. I don't have an exact figure on that, but I know it's more than 0, so it's certainly worth the effort. But though I am a fan of them, I'm not giving you Tau propaganda today. It's been far too long since I've sat down and properly glazed the Eldar, and I feel like I'm getting rusty. In full transparency, the elves of Warhammer Fantasy are no longer my favorite faction. The Tomb Kings have taken their rightful place on top there. But in 40k? Sorry, Necrons, but you don't have Setcher the Imperishable, nor do you have rats with machine guns, so the Space Elves are still firmly #1. So today, I ask that you keep an open mind, because just like I did for Nagash, this video is going to be straight up Eldar propaganda. It is going to be 100% biased. I am absolutely going to twist facts to make them look better. And from the bottom of my heart, I want you to know that I won't feel bad about it in the slightest. But before we discuss the finer points of the people who gave rise to the goddess of pleasure, I must ask, would you like some pleasure? Because if so, look no further than the sponsor of this video, Adam and Eve. Adam and Eve is nothing less than the finest purveyor of adult toys that this world has ever seen. There's items for men, there's items for women, there's items that I didn't know were something that would ever exist. There's a furniture section on the online store. Adult furniture. That's surely at least a little bit intriguing to you. And if not, there's thousands of other options for you to pick from. But maybe you want to keep it on the down low a little bit. Not a problem. Adam and Eve offers discreet shipping, so there's no need to worry about any awkward conversations about the box on your porch. And I can go a step further than that, because Adam and Eve has a 90-day hassle-free return policy. If you didn't quite get the bang for your buck you wanted, just send it back. There's 24/7 customer service to help you with that too, and with over 50 years of business history and 20% of their profits going to fighting the spread of HIV, every step of the way of getting some Adam and Eve products will feel good. If all that excites you, and it really should, then how about a deal for you? Go to adamandeve.com and use code Pancreas for 50% off one item, free shipping in the US and Canada, and free rush processing. Some exclusions apply. That's adamandeve.com and code Pancreas for 50% off one item, free shipping in the US and Canada, and free rush processing. If you need that special something to help you unwind after a long day, go grab yourself some Adam and Eve today. Now then, time for you to accept the truth of Eldar supremacy. Let's go back to the beginning for this, and I mean the very beginning of 40k's in-universe narrative, short of the Big Bang itself. 65 million years ago, give or take a couple of million years, some poor race decided they would ask their neighborhood grandparents for the cure to cancer. The neighborhood grandparents were assholes, so they told this poor race to get bent. This poor race decided that if they couldn't live happily, then no one could, so they turned Cthulhu and all his siblings into Decepticons, turned themselves into Terminators, and thus the greatest conflict in history broke out. The war in heaven is, ironically enough for this video, pretty damn sympathetic for the Necron side of things. But now is not their time, because the Eldar are immediately out of the gates swinging in this little conflict. The Catan and the Necrons were a juggernaut. The Old One's psychic might couldn't do anything to stop them. So in terms of getting the Eldar up to speed, as the Old Ones did, I imagine it's something similar to the Spartan 3s. Take this 6-year-old child, pump them full of drugs and augmentations, and tell them to go stop the horrible aliens advancing on everything they know and love. And by God, did that 6-year-old throw hands, because according to the Eldar 8th edition codex, nothing could hope to stand in their way once they got serious. To quote the book itself, most of these conflicts, though, were so short-lived that the ease of their victory left the Eldari ever more sure of their ascendancy. The Necrons and the Catan at their height were nothing compared to the ancient Eldar, and quite frankly, even the books in modern 40k back that up to some extent. In the Mephiston series, he at one point encounters a Necron lord, who comments that while powerful, he's a shadow of what the ancient Eldar could do. Mephiston can stop time, as I understand it, full-on the world-style time stop. And according to a very credible source who was there to witness the Eldar without any limitations, he's a child in comparison. This only makes sense because even in battles, the Eldar themselves...
I mean, it seems like I need to read a Mephiston book because I have not read it, so I guess I need to do that.
Elves couldn't handle, they could easily find someone that could, specifically their gods. The Eldar pantheon is a bit hard to pin down in 40k. Maybe they're former Old Ones, maybe they got uplifted by the Old Ones alongside the mortal Eldar, or maybe the Eldar made them during the War in Heaven as weapons and just came to worship them as gods. I like the second option the most because I feel it gives them the most agency, but take your pick of the backstory, it doesn't really matter. Either way, the end result is still an Eldar champion realizing they need some help and then calling down the very heavens themselves to assist them, because in their glory days, divine intervention really was as easy as that. Such gods did things like ripping the Catan into little bite-sized pieces, like Cain with the Nightbringer. And don't you worry, I have things to say about Cain later. The outcome of the War in Heaven itself has been said by many to still technically be a Necron victory. Before the War in Heaven there were old ones, and after it there weren't really any. I'll give them that credit, the Necrons deserve as much. They fought hard, and the old ones are gone now. But in this war, there were two winners, and the greater victor was the Eldar. The Necrons went to sleep for, as far as I can tell, two major reasons. One is just that the galaxy was far too torn apart for them to be happy with. If they wanted their bodies back, best to wait till the galaxy could reseed itself with life after the conflict killed most everyone in it. The other reason was that they were very aware the Eldar were out there and more than happy to finish the fight the Necrons started. Given how effective the Eldar were in the War in Heaven, none of the Necrons were particularly keen to get ass-blasted to infinity and beyond by a solar system-sized psychic storm. And
yeah, they just take a little nap. Just take a little sleep. I'm tired, just need some sleep.
With that, it was unchallenged Eldar supremacy for 65 million years, and I want everyone to do a bit of a mental exercise together real quick. With the unlimited information granted me by a basic Google search, in our actual real world, humanity has been practicing agriculture for anywhere from 11,000 to 15,000 years.
Okay.
The timescale of the Imperium of Man is therefore anywhere from a little bit younger than agriculture itself to just as old. Furthering that notion, another look at the first page of Google tells us that recorded history beyond Neanderthal paintings on a cave wall began in about 3200 BC, meaning the Imperium is about 3.5 times older than we've been keeping track of things. The beginning of the Eldar's complete dominance over the galaxy happened when we still had dinosaurs. And you know why everyone just glosses over this little fact? I can give you two reasons. One is that GW authors, as with most sci-fi authors to be fair, fail to grasp any sense of scale. It's why it sometimes feels like nothing happens in between the Horus Heresy and 40K. The second more important reason is that humans as a whole can't grasp that kind of time scale. You do not understand what 65 million years is. I'm not judging, I don't either. We're just not built for that. But as best you can, I want you to keep that fact in mind. The Eldar were almost completely unchallenged for 65 million years straight. The Earth was ruled by lizards when they first took power, and it wasn't until mankind and 40K reached the stars that the first signs of their power slipping began to appear. As far as I know, the only race that once overtook them temporarily was the race that coined the term Monkai among them. If my math is correct, a big if, given how dogshit I am at math, that's one moment of them faltering over all that time. Want another fun time span fact? Well, it's my video, so you're getting one no matter what. Our good friend known as the first page of Google once again comes to the rescue, because according to it, 70% of oil formed 66 million years ago or earlier. Breaking out the calculator, if we subtract 70 from 100, we get 30. The Eldar were in power longer than 30% of the oil on Earth has been in existence.
Wow.
The Eldar are older than fucking oil. During this time, another
Incredible.
two important things to note occurred. The Sea of Souls began turning into chaos proper, with Khorne, Nurgle, and
I appreciate that he took all of that time to give us the math for that. Incredible.
Tzeentch eventually forming into proper Chaos Gods. Yet despite 3 of the 4 Chaos Gods being present, none of them were able to truly gain mastery over the warp, nor intervene in real space, at least not to the extent that they would from the Horus Heresy onwards. Once again, I am giving the Eldar and their gods all the credit for this. For 65 million years, and since warp time is all funky, it could very easily be longer than that, the Eldar pantheon held chaos at bay. Even during the Eldar gods' war in heaven, where they all picked sides between Cain and Vol, chaos couldn't sink their claws in either the Eldar nor their gods. They just couldn't, and don't tell me they didn't feel like it, because they absolutely would have if they had the chance. Asurian, Isha, Cain, Morai Heg, any other god I can name. Their efforts kept the galaxy as clean of chaos as it possibly could be post-war in heaven. During this time, the Eldar were also all perpetuals, because death wasn't a thing. They just reincarnated, memories optional if they wanted a clean slate. Once again, according to the 8th edition Codex, the stars themselves lived and died at their whim. They would ride solar flares like the Silver Surfer for fun. Though they had their own gods, each Eldar might as well have been one. It's no wonder they felt they were supreme like Gelt, because they could just show up to a system, decide it lost sun privileges, and then leave. It's slight exaggeration, no one is supreme like Gelt, but by God they were close. But let's skip ahead to the end now, and by
Oh wait, hang on. Did we just hit an ad? Okay. Or did we just finish ads? I'm trying to be better about keeping an eye on ads. You snoozed them? Okay. Keep snoozing them for as long as we can. Thank you.
God am I gonna go into overdrive to turn them creating Slaanesh into a victory, or at least a defeat that makes him look good. Consider that the fall of the Eldar took place over a few thousand years until the early 30th millennia, where the dam finally broke and a torrent of fluid best unmentioned flowed from it, birthing Slaanesh. Considering how long they were around, this was an admittedly rapid decline brought about through their own hubris and degeneracy, but there's some things going into it that make it not as bad as you might think at first. It occurred after 65 million years straight, as I've been saying, of being pretty goddamn straight edge, all things considered, for one. It happened because it was rather exponential in how it progressed. Started as some guys not going into work one day because they felt they earned a break, and then a month later it turned into the most horrific orgies you'd ever seen. Not helped by this is the fact that the craft rollers and exodites were the moral purists who told everyone to maybe put down the heroin needle on Mondays at least, or something like that. When they left, no one was around to tell the remaining Eldar to chill out with the rampant hedonism, so it only accelerated. Now with all that, think of it this way. The other three Chaos Gods were the galaxy's collective sins and dark subconscious thoughts. They came about because of the war in heaven, which technically makes them all the Old Ones and Necron's fault, as well as the galaxy at large for being so awful. Slaanesh was all the Eldar. So powerful were they even during their rapid slide into ruin that they alone created a Chaos God. Compare that to the Emperor and all that Dark King nonsense during the End and the Death and whatever the hell that was. It took him the galaxy's largest empire ripping itself in two, 19 demigods waging war against each other, and all the suffering those things entail to form the conditions that would have created the Dark King. That would have been mankind's Chaos God. The Eldar created the same thing after 5 minutes in the bathroom with a magical crack pipe. Even when they're dooming us all, no one can match the scale of the Eldar. For that matter, consider the birth of Slaanesh itself and what it says about the Eldar. The psychic scream of her becoming real caused Orikan the Diviner, who has no soul and cannot feel that sort of thing, to become so traumatized he hid away in his own little pocket dimension for hundreds of years, meditating and calming himself down. That's what the collective power of the Eldar accidentally unleashed on the galaxy. It's an Eldar. I'm not going to pretend that Slaanesh was good for them, but their psychic might and resonance in the warp created a being that affected soulish creatures like the Necrons enough to traumatize them. And getting to the modern Eldar now, I want to address Cain first of all. Cain loses in pretty much everything he's in. If an avatar of Cain shows up, you can safely assume the Eldar are about to lose. Sure enough, when the Pantheon was devoured, he lost his battle against Slaanesh.
Yeah, if you play Dawn of War and an avatar of Cain appears, you beat the crap out of it later.
But him losing that... Sure enough, when the Pantheon was devoured, he lost his battle against Slaanesh. But him losing that battle shows how strong he was if you look just a little bit into it. When Slaanesh had eaten the rest of the Eldar Pantheon and was at the height of her power, Cain fought her to a standstill. True, he didn't win, but he wasn't losing either. Cain at this point was fighting the strongest Chaos God head-to-head and holding firm in the battle. He only lost when Khorne decided to get in on the action and claim Cain for himself. He and Slaanesh poured their power into Cain to claim him as their own, and the bloody-handed god was ripped into pieces. Cain isn't anathema to chaos in the way the Emperor is. There's nothing particularly special about him that makes him inherently counteract chaos. Yet despite him fighting Slaanesh at her strongest when all his followers who'd empower him were dead and therefore he was at his weakest short of being shattered, he held firm. It took the two strongest Chaos Gods wrestling over him to defeat him, and he still didn't die. He just broke and landed on all the craft worlds in real space. Cain was so powerful that he couldn't be killed even with Slaanesh and Khorne's combined might pouring into him. He broke apart instead. As for why he loses all the time, it isn't even because he's an Eldar character and therefore destined to lose to Imperials, although that doesn't help. It's because he can respawn. If you can respawn, you will be defeated in whatever you show up in. He can die infinitely many times and always come back, so he gets killed to show how cool whoever killed him is. But in Caiaphas Cain, we see just what he can do when the writers actually treat him with respect, and what he can do is orbitally drop onto an enemy Titanfall style and rip a demon princess apart. Jurgen was there, which certainly served to weaken the demon, but Cain's a warp god too. He would have been a bit worse off from Jurgen's presence as well, but the man kept going. And I'll let you in on a little secret from the tabletop. Cain beats Angron in a fight. Fate Die can give him a free 6 on his ranged attack, which in turn gives...
This is probably out of date now. But that's pretty cool, and I need to read the Caiaphas Cain book that talks about that.
And potentially another 3 hits with his ranged attack. Combine that with his melee profile, his ability to have all damage, and his inherent toughness and save, and Angron's getting bodied. I am telling you from experience, Kayla Mencha Cain, when treated with the respect he deserves from his stats, is a monster. He tied with Scarbrand as well in the lore, which is quite the feat. Also a quick shout out to Isha, who despite being deprived of power, locked in Nurgle's guard.
Is that another feat? Hang on. No, it totally is. Okay, maybe that's not what he was going for. No, it totally is. It's Fauna. There's another VTuber named Fauna. And at first I was like, I don't remember the flower in her hair. No, it's Fauna for sure. Because I was like, no, it's not her. But then the little mole by her eye. Man, he likes VTubers. Can't blame him, though. Can't blame him. Good girl, Fauna. Okay, hang on. We'll go back. Sorry, I was just like, I think that's a VTuber, but also Art of Isha could reasonably be like this, aside from the lack of pointy ears here.
Also, a quick shout out to Isha, who despite being deprived of power, locked in Nurgle's garden, and completely cut off from the Eldar, still has the power to insta-cure any disease thrown at her and can whisper the cures to her mortal followers. That's a pretty good goddess to worship.
Wow.
Better than the Corpse Emperor, I'd say. But the Eldar themselves now, though shattered, are still capable of tearing anyone who tries to step up to them a new asshole. Consider Bael'Tan. The Imperium gets 2 sector fleets, which can be anywhere from 100 to 150 warships, 10 Space Marine chapters, and all that entails, all over a single planet. The end result was a decisive Bael'Tan victory, and it belongs to Bael'Tan alone. While the Imperial forces could call upon all the different Forge worlds and more for supply, reinforcements, and whatnot, Bael'Tan had itself and only itself after Iyanden refused to help them, and they won handily. They were certainly bloodied from it, but it was very much a win for them. Speaking of them and Iyanden, consider the Scouring. After the Horus Heresy, the Loyalists drove the traitors into the Eye of Terror, and cleansed the galaxy of any remnants of traitorous forces hanging around. Except they didn't do it alone, not that any of them knew this. Iyanden and Bael'Tan each took half the galaxy to cleanse of chaos, because a corrupted galaxy is not a good one to live in.
Won't lie, that is an affront to my senses, that bright yellow. Ugh.
And I couldn't find a single instance of them losing. Now granted, there isn't much really expounded upon in this time period beyond them fighting against chaos, but Iyanden's lore in particular tells me that this is because their victories were so assured that it's not worth going into detail beyond that. Iyanden's whole current shtick is that they're so beat up that they have to use Wraith Guards as normal troops, and their losses in Pyrrhic victories are elaborated on in detail because of this. You gotta explain how they fell so far from grace they have to resort to necromancy to get by. We haven't heard about any defeats against chaos during this time, and Iyanden is noted as having been rather arrogant about the Tyranid threat that ultimately reduced their numbers so greatly, as well as Prince Uriel's general arrogance. If they ever lost against chaos during this time, we would have known, because they either wouldn't be so arrogant or would have had mentions of defeats that led to the Wraith Guard, so I have to conclude they never lost. Any Chaos Space Marines or other cults present in these parts of the galaxy were surely defeated handily, for otherwise it would have been a noted part of Iyanden's backstory. And before any Imperial or Chaos fans go, the absence of evidence is not the evidence of absence, I'd also remind you that it's not evidence of any of these things happening either. The Xenos are allowed to simply win too, not just the human factions. Bael'Tan, for its part, would go on to defend 3 maiden worlds against demon invasions all at the same time after losing half their population.
Impressive.
And Iyanden would go on to have Prince Uriel stab a Tyranid so hard it hurt the hive mind itself. Not just the bug he stabbed in any in Synapse range, the hive mind itself. The intergalactic, species-wide consciousness of an entire species was hurt by one Eldar and his pointy stick. Gorguts would be proud if he knew of it, no doubt. And despite the Horus Heresy being Space Marine the series, there's a few moments where the Eldar are shown to still be incredibly capable despite their fall from grace. Remember when Fulgrim dragged Perturabo on his wild ride to ascend to Demon Princehood? They landed on a former Eldar world, and immediately were shown why that was a horrible, horrible idea, because the defenses of that world were not happy to see these primitives traipsing about for their own selfish and petty desires. Not long after they landed, Wraithbone constructs rose to defend their home, and they cut, stomped, and blasted through the Marines present like they were nothing. Better yet, strange ghost-like warriors made up of smoke and light actually cut through the Marines present like they weren't there. Their weapons passed through them without leaving a scratch, but the Marine would just keel over dead.
Wow.
Fulgrim's ascension was the only thing that saved everyone present. If he didn't become a demon Primarch, there'd be 2 less traitor legions in the galaxy, all from one single Eldar world's defenses. What about everyone's favorite dickhead Eldrad? Eldrad's in a real unfortunate position. He's a real strong guy, but being a Xeno who has high-stakes plots, he has to lose in the end. Cue the Death Watch stopping a ritual that would kill Slaanesh. But when he's allowed to do his thing unhindered, he makes Magnus look like a goddamn child. I do apologize for this bit coming up, because I have to mention John Grammaticus. If it makes you feel better, it's John Grammaticus about 2 seconds from shitting his pants in Unremembered Empire. Johnny Boy was on Macragge doing perpetual cabal, whatever the hell garbage plotline stuff, when he suddenly came down with a killer headache. Accompanying this headache was also time itself grinding to a halt across Macragge, and what he knew was an Eldar trying to reach out to him. He assumed it was the one that was part of the cabal and told him to piss off until he could recover a bit. After this, things went back to normal. He went to a tavern to get some grub and realized that, oh shit, there's mirrors in this tavern too, which means it's time for more psychic crap to happen to him. Time once again freezes, the world outright becomes blue-tinted as he realized the waiters attending him were stopped mid-conversation. Eldred walks in, and John Grammaticus is sitting there paralyzed with fear.
Oh,
John
yeah,
Grammaticus is a perpetual. He can respawn. And when confronted with Eldred, all he could think of was that death itself had come to his little corner of reality. Eldred then casually reveals that not only has he implanted all sorts of knowledge in John's mind without him knowing, but that he is fully aware that the Ultramarines librarians had noticed what happened in spite of time being stopped, and that John didn't need to worry about it. In 8 minutes, a larger psychic event would occur, and then after that, something even worse would happen. Sure enough, in 8 minutes, some word-bearers tore through the warp onto Macragge, and after that, Conrad Kurz descended. Eldred, when he's on his A-game, is absolutely terrifying to behold. Reality itself is his plaything. He's a thin, graceful, silent specter of death who can decide you need to explode now, and then you explode. He was also supposedly a friend of the Emperor at one point, prior to the Great Crusade, as evidenced by some Harlequins telling some Imperials that. A Xeno so goddamn capable and impressive he predicted some word-bearers and Conrad Kurz arriving down to the second, and was friends with Big E. Worth noting is that Mephiston, while not being super stressed with time stopping either, has a somewhat limited radius he can do it in. Eldred told a big chunk of Macragge, if not all of it, to go to the timeout corner. All that was really said was that the librarians were aware of a psychic event having occurred. Not that it was an Eldar causing it, nor that it was ongoing. Just that while time was stopped, they were aware something was happening. Which could mean anything from he only stopped time locally, to the librarians would know the instant he resumed time that something was going on. Or even that they were aware time was stopped, but couldn't do shit because time was stopped. Either way, the end result was an Eldar slipping onto Macragge, getting what he wanted, and then going merrily on his way without anyone being able to stop him. He's also calmed the warp down to allow the Imperial Fist to reach Terra during the War of the Beasts. The warp. The thing the Eldar can only barely interact with now that Slaanesh is a thing. He made the warp sit the hell down for a bit and behave so the Marines could go do their thing, like it was no big deal. And he, like every other Eldar, is restrained by Slaanesh's existence. He can't show his true power level like a Dragon Ball Z character because then his soul is forfeit. If other Farseers were allowed to be unchained, they'd probably be able to do what he did, and God only knows what Eldred could do then. And yet every dedicated Eldar Psyker is still at the very least an equal match to something like a Space Marine librarian. Salandri Veilwalker might as well have pulled Mephiston around by the ear when she needed him. Farseers, when they do let the runes burn out and overload their power, are destined to die and be consumed by Slaanesh, to be sure, but so is everything on the planet they're on. They are unmatched beacons of psychic might, short of something like a greater demon of Tzeentch showing up, like when a group of 6 of them invaded Nurgle's garden.
This is interesting stuff to know about Eldar, you know, psychers and stuff. This is fascinating. Who would have guessed? First thing I see when I show up is the title of the stream, Elf Babies. That's not what the stream is titled. Elf Babes. No elf babies here. What is this? Well, the Eldar has red hair. I don't know what you're talking about. Pure coincidence.
To rescue Isha. They only finally lost when their physical bodies withered away from the plague affecting their craft world. For days prior to that point, they were in the home of one of the Chaos Gods, ripping his forces a new one. In the very few moments we've seen them act unbound, nothing can stop them. I mean, this picture of them fighting the Thousand Suns says it all. Eldred is contesting Magnus himself, and the Avatar of Cain isn't the slightest bit worried about what's going on around him. He's just walking right up to Magnus like, oh, I am so gonna kick your bright red ass, Magic Man. This is the premier psychic demonic army in the galaxy, and the nerfed Eldar are going toe-to-toe with them. And to top off my Eldred glazing sesh, he beat Abaddon. In hand-to-hand combat, he beat the Despoiler. Ulthwé was invaded, but Abaddon should have consulted his own future-seeing stuff a bit more, because the entire thing was turned into a kill zone designed to whittle down his forces as he approached his battle with Eldrad. And then Eldrad won. Abaddon
Yeah, I was gonna say, yeah, who hasn't beaten him? Fair. I was just thinking, I was like, well, you're right.
Fans will cry out that the lore blurb mentions how Eldrad achieved the one timeline he won out of the countless thousands he lost, which I say, okay, sure, and those other outcomes he lost the duel, but he didn't get those outcomes. He won. Abaddon fled Ulthwé with his tail between his legs, which means Eldrad did what people like Sigismund couldn't. I am absolutely going there, I don't care. All of this has been Craftworld Eldar, though, I realize. What about the other main factions? Hello, Dark Eldar. How horrible to see you. Let's start from their beginning as well. All Eldar tech is based on psychic stuff being at least partially integrated. It's literal techno-sorcery. The Dark Eldar, however, can't use psychic powers because otherwise Slaanesh will home in on Kamara and eat them all. So the Dark Eldar had to rebuild their entire technological base from the ground up, because if they used any of the stuff they used to have, they'd get devoured. You know how the Imperiums have been trying and failing to do that for a million different reasons? Well, the Dark Eldar
He's getting ahead of the haters in the comments.
Did it. From an arguably worse starting position, too, because Imperial tech doesn't require magic it can no longer use to function. And furthering things the Dark Eldar do better than anyone else, terror. The Dark Eldar are the most horrifying force in the galaxy.
And think about this, they have the Harlequins, and they're kind of terrifying if you've read any of the Fabius Bile books. Terrifying. And they're supposed to be things that the Eldar find funny. They're supposed to be funny, and they're terrifying.
Yes, even better than you, Night Lords. Actually, I've noticed that they seem to get the most respect and credit out of all Xenos, at least in this specific area. People might argue all day long whether or not Chapter Master Scrunglius Maximus can beat a Dark Eldar Incubus in a fight, which is fair enough. But no one argues that if it does look like he's gonna lose, that he should immediately try to blow his head off with his pistol, because dear God, being taken to Kamara is a fate worse than being lost in the warp.
Don't do
and
it.
Absolutely no one argues the fact that none of his chapter mates should try to rescue him, because willingly going to Kamara without either infinite plot armor or a Dark Eldar specifically wanting you there is a great way to get yourself turned into a chair. They can't overtake the galaxy, sure, but none of them wants that. They want a divided galaxy fighting amongst itself so they can swoop in, terrorize the enemy, steal a couple million people, and then piss off.
Casually,
and by God, does 40k provide just that. Their win condition is already achieved, because it's a galaxy divided against itself while they have free reign to slurp up the souls of everyone in it. Everyone who says they'd lose in a straight-up fight against the other factions is missing the point. Everyone else will never get that straight-up fight. They'll never get the one-on-one brawl against the Dark Eldar that'll put them out of the game for good. Go ahead, try and Cyclonic Torpedo Kamara. At best, you'll ruin a small part of it that gets detached from the greater whole. Most likely, they're gonna throw it back at you. And at worst, the entire group you sent to deliver the payload is now being tortured for all time because they find it mildly amusing. And yes, this terrifying force can strike out of the shadows from the webway without warning. Yes, they do this all the time. No, there isn't anything that can be done to stop them 99% of the time. Something to keep in mind is that when you see a Dark Eldar tabletop match, it means something has gone wrong for the Deldar. For most of their raids, they just whisk away half a planet in the middle of nowhere into the night. And if they do need to fight, which is something that you can't really replicate on the tabletop in the name of fun, they make it as unfair as possible. Whoever stands against them will be poisoned, flashbanged, kneecapped, and drugged before the fight even begins. Then they show up and drag you kicking and screaming somewhere you'll never get out. All of which assumes they don't just steal your son for giggles. Good luck to any Astartes that try swiping a chainsword at the empty vacuum of space. Though I'm not glazing them as much as the rest of the Eldar, I don't need to, because as it stands, the Dark Eldar are winning. They want a galaxy where they can freely pick and choose from across it for slaves and victims. They have it right now. The warp breach from the Great Rift in Kamara was sealed by the Mandrakes, and while Vex's position might be a bit shaky at the moment, that's just a political change. It's hardly something that's going to end their society, it's just a potential change of who's the biggest boss. And to everyone who complains about how they're terribly dishonorable and it makes them cowards that they fight the way they do, complain away. I'm sure that'll convince them to let you go free. Not totally just turn them on or something like that. Regular Eldar do the same raiding thing almost as effectively, mind you. They just usually don't take prisoners or revel in the slaughter. They aren't freaky like that. But of course, let's not forget the Harlequins. You know how everything is canon, not everything is true? And how people usually use that excuse whenever GW releases something the fanbase doesn't like, rather than for anything resembling nuanced discourse? Yes, I am being an arrogant snob right now, I don't care. This is an Eldar video, it's called Getting Into Character. Well, how about this? The Harlequins absolutely did body the Custodes on Terra. The author coming out and saying he meant it was actually the Lucifer Blacks? Imperial propaganda, to hide the fact that some clowns gave the Emperors 10,000, the worst KD ratio they'd ever received. The Harlequins are an unstoppable force of comedy and mayhem. Their weapons are like if you took a joy buzzer and hooked it up to the Wunderwaffe from COD, among other rather more disturbing things like the Harlequin's kiss. Do you like people's soup? Because that's what their weapons make.
Nope.
And they just can't be stopped from showing up and doing whatever the hell they want. They'll show up on Terra, they'll show up on Forge Worlds, on Civilized Worlds, they'll Fortnite dance straight through Camera and the Craft Worlds, and no one can stop them. Aside from their mastery of the webway letting them show up wherever, they're strong enough to kill you if you try to stop them. They're quick enough that by the time the Inquisition has shown up, they're long gone. And if you try to follow them, welcome to the webway. It actively wants you dead for trespassing, and within it is the last god of the Eldar that has been unbroken by Slaanesh and is free. He's gonna kill you in the funniest way possible. Give it a go. Try to go into the Black Library to get rid of them once and for all. When it's posted
It won't be funny for you.
on whatever the Craft World version of Live Leak is, we'll know how it went. Other minor things that aren't worth a full paragraph are things like Wraithguard and the other Wraith constructs. Did you know as of time of writing on the tabletop, Wraithguard are 2 points of toughness stronger than Terminators? A dead elf is tankier than the chapter's finest. Wraithlords are Eldar dreadnoughts that can do backflips, and Wraith Knights are Imperial Knights, but the same thing. Everything is better with elves, simple as. Aspect Warriors and Incubi move like Dragon Ball Z characters, because the average person just can't see it happen. They see the Eldar, they blink, and then their top and bottom halves are separate things. Incidentally, if you have to pick which Dark Eldar to fight, pick an Incubus. They'll at least just kill you instead of dragging you back to horrific torture. Don't forget Farseers seeing the future with damn near perfect clarity. The real reason you only ever see Farseers getting things wrong, aside from author bias, is that when Farseers get it right, there's no battle, there's no book to talk about. The Eldar have already redirected things in their favor, and we don't get a book out of it because it's nothing happening. At most, they quietly assassinate someone and then move on. Farseers are the ultimate authority on seeing the future, aside from Kairos Fateweaver, who is insane, and we only never see the actions they take that save Eldar lives, ironically enough, because the result is usually nothing happening. But I'm not done, because I will now give the Ynnari some slight bit of credit. Yes, their trilogy sucked so hard it even managed to become a trilogy. Yes, their lore is nothing but setback after setback, loss after loss. And yes, GW hates this faction and it will forever languish in canon limbo. But you know what? It's proof that the Eldar have the capability to make some serious goddamn waves if they want to. And I'm just gonna say it in more creative ways than the other factions too. The Tyranids just coming to eat, the Orcs just to fight, the Tau are always trying to make friends, Chaos and the Imperium are just bashing their heads against each other and praying to X-God that everything works out. Or good old reliable, bring back another Primarch, it's not gonna get old. But the Eldar, they saw a chance for a specific plan of action and took it. Bring Iniad forth without killing everyone, defeat Slaanesh, and then finally catch the slightest break after 10,000 years of misery. And they almost did it. And much like I've said for Nagash, this was not a ritual that failed because it was beyond them. Were it not for the Death Watch, Iniad would have been born. Slaanesh would have been slain or at least severely weakened, and while the galaxy would still be stacked against them, they would have had a real, actual chance to regroup and catch their breaths. They could have started thinking about putting more work into colonizing or rebuilding now that they don't need to be so careful with their lives. They could have unleashed more of their psychic might onto the galaxy. Iniad wasn't a failure because he was an impossibility, he failed because his summoning was stopped. And even though Yvraine kinda sucks, she did give the Eldar, and to a lesser extent the galaxy at large, something it hadn't had for some time. Hope. Hope that Slaanesh could be defeated. Hope that with Guilliman's return she assisted, the light at the end of the tunnel could actually be reached. Such is the power of the Eldar, the bringers of hope. And to wrap us up, the Phoenix Lords.
Full disclosure, I do not know much about her other than like the vague memes that you get. But I've been wanting to read some more Eldar books, but there's so many good Imperium ones that I want to read first. There's just too many books.
They're awesome. They're Primarch-level figures in a species that didn't need genetic and magical witchery to make them. They're just built different. Across the galaxy when they show up, the Eldar are almost unstoppable. Jane Czar was a Night Lord's blender for a little while, only being stopped by a suicide bomb. Without that, she would have kept on blending. It's not like it stopped her, because Phoenix Lords can also respawn. She'll just possess another Eldar and get right back to it. Maugan Ra rolled up his sleeves, spit in his hands, and slew a Tyranid Hive fleet by himself.
That's a pretty cool
Unless you go by
mini.
newer versions of that lore, because you suck and are boring, in which case it was only a single Hive ship by himself. Or Asserman, the Eldar version of the greatest of them all. He's so renowned that there's legends across the galaxy about him amongst other species, not just the Eldar. He started the Path system and pretty much invented their modern society, leading to warriors trained over hundreds of years unmatched by any other in their specific craft. But do you know what I think his greatest feat is? Something that shows who he ultimately is deep down? Starting a soup kitchen on an Imperial world. Because that's just what he did. On a world that was soon to be invaded by Tyranids, a charity organization called The Hand was handing out food, medicine, and other basic goods to Imperial citizens to make their lives better. Sure enough, the authorities in charge were at one point suspicious it was a gene stealer cult. After all, Tyranids are coming, this group is being suspiciously charitable. If you looked hard enough, you'd probably see some of these people had 3 arms. But no, it was just that, a charity organization, one that also provided information on the threats both above and below in regards to the Tyranids. The only other theory was that some noble felt a bit guilty at living so well while everyone below him lived in squalor, so they decided to help out a bit. When shit hits the fan, an Eldar reveals himself. The Space Marine character immediately points a gun at him, because of course, but the Eldar simply replies that he's a friend and he works for the Hand, who protects the people of the planet. And when the Hand finally makes his appearance, which includes him soloing 2 Carnifexes, it's none other than our boy Asserman, also known as the Hand of Assyrian. And I tried. I did honestly try to see if there was some sort of Eldar scheme to gain trust, so 1,000 years down the line they could walk into the planet and kill everyone on it or something. But all I could come up with was that the scheme was make nice with the Imperials so they can fight the Nids off better as well as allow us to help them, which is not much of a scheme. If that was the scheme, it's just being a good person. So you know what? That's my final piece of Eldar propaganda for you. I could say plenty more, but this is about 20 pages of script of me blowing my load all over the knife ears. My final piece of propaganda and glazing is that when the Eldar come around, give them a chance, because there's pretty decent odds they just want to hand out alms to the poor. And in the grim darkness of the far future where there is only war, the man who opens a soup kitchen has the greatest power of them all. Kindness. Thank you as always to my wonderful channel members. You were the Eldar to my 40k. The setting would be nothing without your scheming, plotting, and fey trickery. If you'd like to support the channel, feel free to subscribe or become a member. Either way, thank you for watching, and take care out there.
I appreciate the elf glazing. It was very nice. Good job.
Hello again, person remaining for the end bit. Depending on your choice of favorite factions, I just got a little question for you. If you're a Death Watch or General Imperium fan, answer me this. Would you still say that all Xenos must die if you were speaking to Optimus Prime? Would you look him in the eye and say the Autobots are lesser than humans simply for not being human? Or would you go full AdMac and shout out about abominable intelligence? Because if you do either of those things, then I gotta say, I'm disappointed. Not mad, just disappointed.
No comment. No comment. I'm not gonna comment on that. Oh my gosh. Bro, I'm so tired today. Yeah, big yawn. Big yawn. Should we do one more? I thought I saw another one. This is about the craft world Bilton. So we could watch this. Oh, he does one on each of the craft worlds. That's a lot. Well, we gotta do elves today. I titled the stream Elf Babes. Elf Babes. Did I not like the TF one? TF. Sorry, I'm having a moment. the other video has elves in it. Like, how much elves? How much? It's elf day today. Let me look. Is it in the Discord? Oh, I have received word that there are, wait. We have 26 more skitters that need adopting. Elf Day, maybe we should see your lore video again? Hey, I don't know what you're talking about. It's unrelated. Unrelated. Second. Hang on, let me pull up. Sometimes the YouTube chat hides a little bit. Okay. Plenty of elves, and I'm kind of tired. How long is the video? So which one? Heleno? I don't know what that is. 1 second. Let me investigate this. Oh, okay. Helenal Whitestrake? That guy? Is that who we're talking about? He's the elf exterminator, but we're learning about elves. Sure, why not? Why not? It's a little anti-elf, but sure, why not? We'll do it just for the fun of it. It seems like we got some interested people in here. Is elf okay? But elf hater. Well, it's what? Why not? It should be. It could be fun. Okay. Is your model an elf? No, I'm an abhuman. My ears are pointed. Just a little different. Abhuman. Oh wait, this is wait. Is it Elder Scrolls? Well, I don't know anything about that. Wait, I don't know anything about that though. Okay, well, I don't know anything about Elder Scrolls. I thought it was fantasy, so because that's the only thing where I'm like, huh. Well, we can do. Why don't we have a more dedicated day for Elder Scrolls rather than just like something else? We could do the techless one. We can do techless. This one.
Wizards are cool.
We could do techless. It falls under the category of elf boss babes. Technically. Let's do techless. Wizard boy. He's the hottest elf. I thought people like Marathi. All right. Techless, apparently the twink wizard, according to Pancreas.
Wizards are cool. A lot of people might say the wizards are just cowards too weak to pick up a sword, and there are times that they have a point, admittedly.
Yes.
That being said, when you have a wizard on your side who casts Fireball and wipes out an entire regiment of enemies in front of you, most people tend to conveniently forget how poorly they think of wizards most of the time, at least until the battle's ended. When the mage on your side has the ability to turn a mountain inside out before entombing you in whatever counts as his insides now, most people tend to at least wait a brief moment before running their goddamn mouth. That's not to say such mages are immune to criticism, it's just that at a certain level of power, it's kind of hard to make fun of them for being weak. Physically weak, maybe, but in terms of a more generic description of being powerful, well, let's just say that when it's being aimed at you, power word kill is not something you hear more than once. And with all that being said, I think it's high time I made a video about Teclis. A moment of your time before I begin speaking about an elf character for the next 15-ish minutes. Do you know another setting that has elves, and indeed what other game you can play right now that has plenty of elven champions to wield? Raid Shadow Legends! And while I've got some other things to talk to you about than elves, rest assured there's plenty waiting for you in the world of Raid. Valentine's season is upon us. The day might have passed, but the spirit is still in the air, mocking my single ass once again. But fret not, because Raid has some couples in its ranks that can boost your team's fighting ability with the power of love and brutal combat. Let me give you the top 3, chosen by me for an extensive list of criteria I've come up with. 1. Seducer and Tempris. Seducer can place damage reduction buffs on all allies and a block damage buff on top of it. Tempris can take an extra turn. Kind of a letdown, but her name is Seducer, so it still fits the Valentine theme. 2. Xavia and Bellinor. Aside from them being elves, so already the perfect couple, when they're on the same team, they unlock the ability to take up to 4 debuffs from one enemy and spread them around to the rest of the enemies. I don't know why, but that's insanely funny to me. Imagine if I just started throwing my diabetes at people. That's what I'm picturing. And 3. Siphi and Rhodos. When on the same team, this dynamic duo can not only reduce damage received from bosses, but remove all debuffs at the start of their turn. Is this why I picked them? Nah, I just like spooky ghosts. Sure, they're an effective combo to use, but ghosts are cool, and that's about all I needed to think about when placing them. Besides living vicariously through these power couples, you can get some goodies this Valentine's season. For new players, as long as you download Raid from my links below and head to raidlovequest.plarium.com and enter your player code, you can not only win Valentine-themed champions, but even up to $1,000 worth of Amazon gift cards through the minigames there. And if you're an existing player, fear not. Head to the same link where every player can find a promo code STValentine23 to get a nice little Valentine's Day gift just for you. The event is running until March 14th, so make sure you get on it. And one final thing just to sweeten the deal. While I try to decide if that was a Valentine's Day pun or not, if you use either my link in the description or the QR code you can see on screen extra big right now, you can get not only the epic champion Jotun, but several other goodies you can also see on screen, totaling to $35 worth of goods. Rewards are available for new players only, so download Raid now and I'll see you there. Alright, time to learn about the end-all, be-all of elven mages. Teclis is Tyrion's twin brother and a descendant of Anarion, a high elf who helped save the world by drawing a sword that almost every god on the planet was desperately telling him not to do. Even the Chaos gods. Because his great-a-lot-of-greats grandpa pulled this sword, he and his brother are cursed. Tyrion got the curse in the form of being Gollum for the Sword of Cain. Meanwhile, Teclis was born with magical tuberculosis. Not kidding on that, by the way, it's described as consumptive, which is an old-timey word for the disease. Because of this, Teclis had 3 hobbies as a child. They were, in order, coughing himself into a coma, having Tyrion and their maid take care of him in between hunting trips and flirting with high elf women, and being experimented on by elven healing mages because if they accidentally killed him, there was always the other brother to keep the bloodline going strong. Yikes. When they both came of age, it was time to go to Lothern and learn the tools of the high elf trade. Tyrion learned how to be a charismatic, friendly master of all forms of warfare. Teclis got to read some books and maybe learn how to cast magic missile if the effort wouldn't kill him.
He got to be an introvert.
The greater demon of Slaanesh, Nakari, manifested to kill them both, and then Assyrian himself said nuh-uh and sent her ass back to the realm of chaos. Because sometimes it's okay for the good guys to get a deus ex machina, especially in a fantasy setting, because in those it's usually literal. Shortly after that, although we're talking about elves right now, so shortly after is anything from a week to several decades, Malekith and the Dark Elves decided that now was as good a time as any to invade Ulthuan again. I mean, they only have to win once, right? Tyrion and Alariel got into some deep shit pretty quickly, while Teclis was just kinda hanging out, doing his thing, you know? He had started taking magical potions to survive, and they helped him stand upright, so that was an uptick in his life.
Good
then
for
some
him.
people told him that surely Alariel and Tyrion were dead, and Teclis said, nah, they ain't. Not Tyrion, at least. They had a magical empathic link, because elven twins just get that, I guess, so he was entirely certain that they weren't dead. And because this was before the end times, and established characters weren't being obliterated every few seconds, he was right. So Teclis made a pretty damn good sword for someone with 0 prior blacksmithing skills, and was given the War Crown of Safri, which is a fancy headpiece that makes some magic better. He went on a journey to find them, and he did. He also found who else but N'Kari, back at it again, trying to kill the Everqueen and his brother. She was there because the Dark Elves decided that making deals with the goddess who wants nothing more than to eat elven souls was a good long-term arrangement. Then Teclis said power word kill, and much like I said earlier, N'Kari had enough time to go power word what before she was once again removed from this realm of existence. As thanks for the rescue, Alariel gave Teclis the Staff of Lilith, the goddess of magic. When he holds it, his magical tuberculosis goes away.
Yay!
Things just keep coming up Teclis. There was, of course, still a massive Dark Elf invasion they had to deal with, so Tyrion started cleaving his way through everything in his path while Teclis sat in the back going, I cast Chain Lightning every few seconds just to really make sure the Dark Elves appreciated trying to invade Ulthuan again. Alariel, meanwhile, she was there, I'm sure, doing something ever-queenly most likely. Malekith himself tried to intervene and take down Teclis, whereupon Teclis reignited the flames of Assyrian that burned him thousands of years ago. This slightly hurting him, Malekith decided to throw himself into the realm of chaos just to get away from Teclis. And then the rest of the Dark Elves and their chaos allies died, the end of that story. Or should I say, it was the end of the story for all the other High Elves. Because while most of them wanted to celebrate the narrow victory and Tyrion went to show Alariel his sword, and no I don't mean Sunfang, Teclis in a very un-elven move decided that perhaps helping others is actually a good thing to do. So he left Ulthuan to visit the Empire, because while Ulthuan was under siege from the Dark Elves, the Old World was going through the Great War against Chaos, and the ever-chosen before Archaon was busy giving it a good once-over. Thankfully, Magnus the Pious, also known as Chadnus the Pious, or yet another Warhammer fantasy character that makes Big E look like a clown, was a bit more open-minded about magic than most fellows. Together with him, Teclis set up the Colleges of Magic in the Empire of Man, allowing them to not only resist chaos a bit better, but actually throw some fireballs of their own around. Before that, human wizards were either crap or weren't allowed to exist at all, so this was a step up. Between this newfound strength and Magnus just generally being the best, chaos was pushed back. By this point, Teclis was pretty happy with what he had done and took a bit of a vacation. Of course, he's also a huge nerd, so his version of vacation was traveling around the world to see sites of magical power, learning about other cultures, and generally trying to fix the absolute mess that the Warhammer world was in at that point. He even went on an adventure with Gotrek and Felix. There are these magical tunnels that run through the Warhammer world that are in essence like the Webway, but even trippier. You can see alternate realities in them as little bubbles, there's spooky voices in them, and a lot of the time, those voices are actually demons. Teclis went to keep them from breaking down and also stop a pair of Tzeentch cultists from destroying Ulthuan, using these tunnels as a way to travel. Gotrek and Felix, meanwhile, almost literally tripped into the tunnels near Sylvania and met Teclis somehow. A contrived reason for a story? Yeah, maybe a little bit, but who cares? It's awesome. Naturally, Gotrek tried to kill Teclis, but because Felix was in some trouble, he held back. After Teclis rescued Felix, they went
I'm reading. I saw this. I was paying attention. Pancreas. I'll comment that. Oh, I'll have to see how many people did it later.
To Albion together, which is like England but even worse. They met and chatted with the locals, and Teclis got himself a female bodyguard who was no doubt very interested in his own magical sword. For whatever reason, high elven women kinda snub him a lot, but human women are ready to drop their pants the moment Teclis opens his mouth. If I had to guess, it's probably because he looks like Benedict Cumberbatch. Gotrek also debated letting the
No, he probably does. He probably does.
cultists win because it meant Ulthuan would sink, and that means a lot of dead elves, but thankfully smarter heads prevailed. Smarter heads being Felix, I should add, because when there's a dwarf, an elf, and a human in a fantasy story, the only reason the first two will work together is because a human is there to remind them to stop being morons. Then Gotrek murdered a giant and got back to the ground by firemen sliding down its ocular vein he ripped out of its skull. Teclis did fight two massively powerful Tzeentchian sorcerers while that happened, but when Gotrek is being Gotrek, it's hard for anyone else to be anything other than a footnote. After his miscellaneous travels, where he went pretty much everywhere the Warhammer world had to offer, Morathi tried to kill him with an assassination attempt. Didn't work, but it still hurt the guy. I like to think it went like it always did, and he got shanked with a knife before going power word kill, and then the Dark Elf went power word what before being obliterated. Also, if you're wondering, yes, I am imagining this happening like in Team 4-Star with the Kaioken joke. For a while after that, he just hung around Safari, doing magical research, filling up Lilith's boobs because they are blatantly a part of the staff he has, and occasionally going out into the world to lead the High Elves to victory. Occasionally meaning whenever someone played him in their Warhammer fantasy army. He was crowned High Lore Master after the last one died, and for a while, that was what Teclis was up to. There was also Storm of Chaos, where he showed up to help the Empire and obliterated Be'lakor and his entire army with a single spell, but that's neither here nor there. Before I start talking about the end times and get upset, let's talk about Teclis himself a bit. As you might have figured out, he's a lot friendlier towards other races than most High Elves are.
For sure.
Mankind specifically, he thinks is intertwined with the fate of the High Elves, and if man falls, then the Elves go down with him. So I imagine most people that don't like Elves are going to be at least a little bit more favorably inclined towards the guy. Beyond that, he approaches his life with a rather good amount of humor. At the end of the Godric and Felix book he appeared in, he sarcastically thinks to himself about how he saved the world and now has to find his way through hordes of orcs and chaos cultists to get home. Just another day in the life of Ulthuan's most unappreciated hero. He's also shown to have some doubts about himself. In the same book, he wished that Tyrion were in the situation instead of himself, mainly because the sheer amount of charisma cascading off Tyrion like a waterfall of friendliness would have diffused things no problem.
The difference between introvert and extrovert siblings. Understandable and relatable.
I don't think he's giving himself enough credit, but at least he's kinda humble. And to throw my 2 cents in, he's very much right about understanding that the elves need mankind and vice versa. That very line of reasoning was why he set up the magical colleges in the Empire. And once again, to go to Godric and Felix, Teclis and Felix were discussing the nature of the world and how the old ones.
Not even exaggerating, his official art looks a whole lot like Mr. Cumberbatch. We'll have to look at... Sorry, we'll have to look at that.
Again, to go to Godric and Felix, Teclis and Felix were discussing the nature of the world and how the old ones set it up. Felix makes a suggestion that Teclis finds to be highly intriguing, and he tells Felix as much. It's not something like him going, yeah, that's a stupid idea, and then it cuts to Teclis fervently writing down the idea for later. He just straight up tells Felix, yeah, that is an awesome idea. Granted, when Felix asks to be kept up to date on any findings Teclis makes on the idea, Teclis tells him that his human lifespan means he'll likely be long dead before he comes to any kind of conclusion,
man.
But still, for an elf, that's some real humility. Alright, end times time now. It's a Warhammer fantasy character, we have no choice but to go here. Even more so with Teclis, because spoiler alert but not really, he shows up in AOS quite a bit. Teclis has apparently been taking lessons from Eldrad and orchestrates a phenomenally massive amount of shit to keep the elves and world at large alive. He gets Tyrion and Alariel's daughter Aliathra sacrificed to bring back Nagash because he figured they'd all need his help to fight back chaos. Major dick move, but at least I can see the logic in that one. He gets the Phoenix King Finnabar killed when it's revealed that Malekith was the true Phoenix King all along. For real, guys, seriously. This one is just straight up awful retconning, but at the very absolute least to give Teclis some credit, going under the assumption that this is true, then it's not the worst idea he's had to get Malekith in charge. It's completely stupid from the standpoint of us reading about the setting because it's just blatantly GW ruining established lore, but somewhat understandable in-universe.
Classic GW ruining lore. Nothing we can do about that, except I can get a bunch of my friends, we can get a conglomerate together, and we can own most of their shares. And then we can change things. But yeah, nothing we can do about that, realistically.
Also, yeah, I'm gonna fight you on this, Eli. Malekith is not the true fucking Phoenix King. He also comes with a plan to harness the winds of magic into 8 individuals known as incarnates, all of whom are elves because Teclis may have accepted humans are necessary for survival, but he's not about to give them unlimited magical power. This plan goes pretty badly. Morathi and Tyrion screw it up, and what ends up happening is that he binds the Wind of Light to his staff and the Wind of Life to Alariel, as was intended. Malekith gets shadow instead of fire like he was supposed to, and all the rest of the winds are just out in the wild somewhere, and as far as Teclis knows, they could have possessed a particularly aesthetic rock. Also, the vortex is unbound, and Ulthuan sinks into the ocean. Big L for the High Elves.
Yeah,
then we flash forward into the end times. Teclis proposes an alliance with Nagash, which everyone hates, but they're somewhat willing to do it. Nagash tells him to go to hell, but then does it later himself so he can claim that he had the idea and not Teclis. Teclis rips out the flame of Ulrich from underneath Middenheim to revive Tyrion after he got killed for being angry over his daughter being murdered and his entire country seemingly betraying him for their sworn enemy. God, Tyrion, don't overreact. It wasn't that big a deal.
Yeah.
This action not only dooms Middenheim to fall to Archaon's hordes, not only gets rid of one of the only remaining gods actively holding back chaos, but also allows Archaon access to a third portal of the old ones that was underneath Middenheim and giving him a very convenient way to destroy the world once and for all by turning it on. This is not only stupid in-universe, it's stupid out-of-universe. I hate the end times. Sorry, that's just a verbal tick of mine I get whenever I discuss the end times. I hate the end times. Funnily enough, Ulrich possesses one of his followers with a little strength he has left and calls out Teclis on his bullshit. Teclis tells him to his face that the Age of Gods is over, which would have been an absolutely stone-cold badass line to say directly to a god's face if the rest of the end times didn't happen. Teclis teleports all the incarnates to Middenheim, but he screwed it up and they just kinda teleport all over the place without any organization. Teclis lands at Archaon's feet, Very unfortunate.
Oh.
He makes fun of them, and then Archaon punches him in the face and knocks his lights out. Eventually, he meets up with the other incarnates, and together they start trying to enact one last ritual to save the world. Oh, but before that, he teleported Grimgor Ironhide and his entire army consisting of every orc and ogre left in the world to Middenheim. Now that would be a real convenient spell to have in D&D. 9th level spell called Summon Orc and Ogre, and it just makes every single one of them in the campaign magically appear there if they fail a spell save or something. I'm sorry, I'm going off topic to avoid having to keep talking about the end times.
That's insane.
Anyways, the ritual was working until one of the incarnates died, so Teclis took that guy's power into himself on top of the one he already had in his staff. This starts tearing him apart, but he holds it together long enough that it looks like the ritual will work. And then Manfred von Karstein stabs Balthasar Gelt in the back. I've mentioned it before on this channel, but every time I come across a chance to cover this bit of lore, I can't help but emphasize it. Just because of how much of a stupid, arrogant, treacherous little weasel Games Workshop was here. Sorry, did I say Games Workshop? I meant Manfred. Regardless, Teclis tries to take Gelt's wind of metal into him on top of the other two, but if 2 winds were causing him trouble, then 3 was definitely not a good idea, and he explodes. He died right before the end of the world, and right before Tyrion avenged him by giving Manfred a prostate exam using Sunfang. And then suddenly, Age of Sigmar. Teclis is a god now, and he no longer requires magical potions and a special staff to stay alive.
Now
and to top off even all that, he found Tyrion after just a little bit of searching around. Tyrion was also a god, and was blind because he got into a staring contest with a spirit that embodied the very concept of light and wasn't about to puss out of a challenge, but he could see through Teclis's eyes. So thankfully they've not only mostly forgiven each other, but Teclis isn't the same kind of god as Zeus is, otherwise things would get real awkward for Tyrion. It'd be real awkward if the person giving you eyesight was someone you hated, even more awkward if every time you opened your eyes, or their eyes I guess, they were porking someone as a swan. After this, they found Malekith and Morathi. Malekith decided to fuse with his dragon or something, because he's a scaly now. With their help, they came together to beat the snot out of Slaanesh and reclaimed elf souls from the end times. And while I cannot confirm this, because for the life of me I can't find the original passage containing this lore, I have read online that there's a possibility that some of these elven souls are perhaps a bit more alien than they should be. Indeed, given that the warp is the warp, some of the souls taken from Slaanesh may not be elves, but Eldar. Or that's just something someone made up, and I'm parroting garbage back at you. I'm gonna consider it canon either way, because I think it's funny when the settings interact, and all the hype/outrage such a thing causes. Now, since I've covered Teclis a bit in the Lumineth faction video, I'll keep his AOS lore relatively brief since I was just talking about it. Teclis tried to recreate the High Elves, failed and made the emo Ideneth instead, failed a couple more times, and then eventually created the Lumineth Realm Lords. He also made a bunch of things called Enlightenment Engines to speed up development in all the
I will say, this is probably one of my favorite minis
mortal realms.
Here, because of, like, the cape. The water cape is just gorgeous. 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 And this giant turtle. Pretty freaking awesome, too. I won't lie.
He's always been about cooperation between everyone. Sigmar secretly dicked around with them a bit, but Teclis doesn't seem to mind too much if he's aware of it. Or he's picking and choosing his battles since he has enough to deal with already. The Lumineth did the funny fall of the Eldar thing, only not quite as catastrophic, so Teclis talked to the moon for a month, and when he came back, he changed their entire society. Might seem a bit drastic, but they were kind of going through the apocalypse, so I understand they were willing to try anything. He then went to work solving all of the major problems the mortal realms faced at the moment, because he is an elf and naturally knows best. He made sure that the Necroquake only kind of catastrophically damaged the Lumineth and Hysh, and then proceeded to fight Nagash. Can you take a guess what unoriginal joke I'm going to make again? Power word kill! Power word what? Granted, Nagash is the god of the dead, so it didn't, kill him, but it did its job well enough. The fight crippled Teclis, sure, but like I said in the Lumineth video, that's just a return to form. It's hard to argue he's weakened, because I know what he was like in fantasy, and he's sure as hell still doing better than there. Something also evidently happened to him where he had to split his soul in half, and the other half is just gone, but honestly, I still think he's in a better place than fantasy. He helped Alariel dispel the death magic across reality, and he's been meditating on how to fix the rampaging beast energies and similarly rampaging hordes of destruction that have been making things slightly difficult for everyone. As I said before, the Lumineth greatly respect him, but find it more productive to just talk to the moon spirit he travels with, and as I also said before, I still find this to be incredibly funny. Sorry, God, but I have better sources of information to draw from. After all, Teclis' source is Selenar, but Selenar's source is I made it up. And as we all know, I made it up is the end-all be-all of sources. Before I do his do or don't, I'd like to briefly talk about something I desperately want to see regarding Teclis. I want him to once again meet Gotrek. oh so badly.
Yeah.
I want Felix to come back more than that, but holy hell was it funny seeing them interact in the Gotrek and Felix book he's in.
Oh,
Gotrek
man.
scared
Okay.
the ever-loving shit out of him. Granted, it was partially because they were in these weird magical tunnels and Teclis didn't want to go all out in case he collapsed reality around them, but the point still stands that this one particularly angry dwarf scared someone who can blow up cities if he wants to. I want Gotrek to hear about how that one elf he reluctantly helped all those years ago is apparently a god now, show up in Heish, and just cause the biggest scene possible.
I would
just
love that.
Start demanding for help finding Felix, or where to find his old axe. Or even just start complaining about how the mortal realms must be truly horrid if some stupid elf from their stupid little island is what passes for a god nowadays. I'm imagining Gotrek ranting in the middle of the public square in Settler's Gain or something, and a bunch of Lumineth are confused why their god is not only preventing them from arresting him, but looks utterly terrified at the thought of them actually trying to apprehend this one annoying dwarf. He knows damn well Gotrek would rip out his tongue before he can finish saying power word kill. Alright, do or don't Teclis. Lore positives, he is the god of the Lumineth. So if you want your army to be led by the faction leader, it's hard to go higher up the chain of command than God. I'm pretty sure Tyrion technically outranks him as a deity in Heish, but Tyrion doesn't have a mini yet. If you want a wise leader to command your army, it's hard to get wiser than Teclis. You might say Selenar is the one who ultimately is behind the Lumineth society as it is, but Teclis is the one who sought the spirit out. And if nothing else, he's always been about the cooperation between the different races to fight back the evils of the world, which in terms of Warhammer is the pinnacle of wisdom. And yet, as I've hopefully made clear, if you want a character with some vulnerabilities to them and one who isn't just a Mary Sue, Teclis is perhaps the ultimate choice in that regard. He's humble for who and what he is, and he even feels inadequate sometimes, even as of Age of Sigmar. At one point during AOS, he has flashbacks to his time infirm in bed while Tyrion was being the best elf ever. He was a mage bar none even before he became a god, but he's always has some edges to his character that really flesh him out. And of course, he's one of the good guys in Age of Sigmar. While the Lumineth may or may not have some spicy mind control stuff going on, Teclis doesn't appear to be a part of it. He's always been about cooperation between men, elves, and dwarfs if they'll bother listening, and at least from what I've gathered, Teclis is behind any of the 1984 crap the Lumineth are pulling. He even helped bring the mortals in AOS up to speed with his Enlightenment engines, and that wasn't something he necessarily did because it benefited him. It seems like he just wanted to help. And now rules positives. I mentioned before in the Lumineth video his spell casting shenanigans, but I'll briefly go over it again since this is his video now. If you cast one spell, you get a guaranteed value of 12 and it cannot be unbound. If you cast 2, guaranteed value of 12. If you cast 4, guaranteed value of 10. As you'd expect, he's got some serious magical firepower. And of course, automatically unbind one endless spell and one enemy spell. Nagash rocking up with the Hand of Dust? No, he isn't. Chaos Sorcerer is about to unleash the might of Tzeentch upon the Lumineth? No, they aren't. I'd put good money on him being able to out-magic Magnus the Red, truth be told. If you think those are the only things about him I covered last time because it's all he has to offer, then you're solely mistaken. If they're within range of his aura of Selenar ability, add 1 to casting, dispelling, and unbinding rolls for all Lumineth mages. You might think this requires you to build an army solely based around the wizard units, but then you remember that the basic Lumineth infantry is a wizard unit. The range is anything from 16 inches to 6, depending on how far down his damage table he is. 6 inches isn't great, but by the time he's down there, you've more than likely gotten plenty of use out of the ability. He can also give everything within 18 inches of him a 5-up ward save. I like how the rules say if successfully cast, as if it is physically possible for him to not cast the spell. I mean, I guess if you aren't doing the one spell guarantee, someone can unbind it, but even then they have to try to unbind it, whereas you just go, this is happening now. Oh, and if a unit within that aura of his is affected by either a spell or endless spell, you just roll yourself a dice, and on a 4-up they not only aren't affected by the spell, but can then pick an enemy unit in range and give them D3 mortal wounds.
Dude, that's
just
crazy.
To be a prick. Oh, and he knows spells from 3 different lores, as in all of the spells from 3 different lores, not including the ones he already knows on his character sheet. In melee range, he's no slouch either, with the sword of Teclis having a pretty damn nice kick to it, and Selenar being able to maul fools to try to take them on. Not the best, but definitely not the worst. As for his tankiness, it's respectable. Again, not the best by a long shot, but he's pretty beefy for a wizard. 16 wounds and a 4-up save means that unless you get absolutely obliterated by both bad rolls and everything the enemy has to offer, Teclis will be sticking around for at least a few turns. And as for his movement, 10 movement is solid. Not the best within the Lumineth or in general, but he can also fly, so if he's really got to get out of a sticky situation, it shouldn't be too hard. As for the lore cons of Teclis, by playing him, you are playing someone at least in part responsible for the world ending. So Teclis doesn't necessarily have the best track record. Prior to that, he'd been doing pretty alright, but that's the kind of black mark that kind of takes up most of a permanent record. Also, if you're the kind of person who really likes making up a narrative and making a story out of your game in general, general, there's two things to keep in mind about Teclis. One is that as one of the gods of High, she's not going to be involving himself in some low-level skirmish. He's going to be fighting in the most realm-shaking battles, not some goblin raid in the middle of nowhere. Two, if you lose the battle, you have probably doomed Heish and the Lumineth, so try not to do that, yeah? Truth be told, though, that's kind of all I got for his lore cons. I like Teclis, so it's hard for me to come up with bad things to say about the guy. Maybe it's because in fantasy he had to take potions on the daily to survive, and that's not a far shot away from insulin. As for tabletop, though, here we go.
Relatable.
He is, despite his toughness, still a mage. So my usual caveats of not 1v1ing someone like Gotrek or Archaon in a fight apply here as well. Even other characters that aren't one of those can put hurt on him in range. If Gordrak gets on top of you after he butchered his way through your wardens, you're in danger. And if the Celestin Prime is put in reserve and then Deep Strike's right next to him, it's not going to be looking good for Teclis, especially given that Karl Franz has quite the amount of guaranteed mortal wounds he can cause. He's certainly tanky for a wizard, but the key thing to take from that phrase is for a wizard. Don't let the free guilds line up the artillery against him, because it's going to hurt. And of course, his price. In the real world, he costs $170 US. That's a lot of money. In-game, he costs 700 points. That's not quite as pricey as Dagash is, but it's enough points that if you're taking Teclis in your army, there's decent odds that you're building your army entirely around Teclis. For reference, the second most expensive unit the Lumineth has is worth 440 points.
That's a cool mini,
if he gets
too.
killed early or before you can get use out of him, it's very likely going to cost you the game. On top of—
Where are, like, these really nice-looking minis for 40k? What the heck?
that 700 points means that you do not have much room for other units, even in larger games. If you only want to use Teclis as a source of DPS, you can probably find better options, at least in terms of pricing. With the big cow monster, even if you include a stone mage to support it, you're still going to have over 100 points more than if you'd taken Teclis. Eltharion not only hits harder in melee, but despite having less wounds, he's tankier because he has a higher save and halves melee and missile damage. And if you're fighting Chaos, Lyriel Uthrali isn't bad at all because he does more damage to them with his Demonbane weapon, as well as only being 170 points. So if you want balls to the wall magic, you want Teclis. But if you want to lean a bit more into the traditional warfare with the Lumineth, there's a lot of options that are probably going to suit you more than he does. But wait, I'm not done, because Teclis is in Total Warhammer, baby. He is a fantastic wizard, if not the best in the game, then top 3 easily. Much like he did in lore, he can just vomit out Chain Lightning. He can also unlock all of the 8 Winds of Magic's passive special abilities, which means every time he casts a spell, he buffs his army and debuffs the enemy. As for how I recommend using Teclis, it's very simple. Download the Recruit Defeated Legendary Lords mod, because playing an actual campaign as Teclis is suffering. As is well known, he was part of the Lustria Thunderdome in Warhammer 2. In Mortal Empires, he had no one to confederate with in Lustria, and almost everyone there either wanted to kill him or was a lizardman going to capture settlements he wanted. If you tried to declare war on them and take them back, the lizards would come together to beat the shit out of you, assuming Harkon or Lokir hadn't already been doing that. In Immortal Empires, Creative Assembly decided to fix this problem by moving him to the Southlands. Instead of fighting pirates, rats, and lizards, he now gets to fight Kairos Fateweaver, Scarbrand, Manfred von Karstein, and pretty much the entire Tomb Kings faction. This is of course in addition to all sorts of minor factions of rats and lizards. Don't worry though, if you pick him, you get Oxyotl nearby, so rest assured, while Tzeentch demons are cheesing you with their Halo energy shield and Scarbrand is sending you to Khorne personally, a chameleon will be taking potshots at them in between your face-pounding sessions. Just download the damn mod and play Tyrion or someone. That way when Teclis inevitably bites it, you can defend Ulthuan with him or something. Fuck man, at least Alethanar is mostly just fighting Dark Elves, not every variety of nasty in the Warhammer world except for Slaanesh demons. I forgot about all the Slaanesh demons down here, so you know what? I lied about that last part. You fight everything. So that's Teclis of the White Tower, or any number of accolades you could give the guy. Pretty cool dude. Shame his role in life is to fix everyone's problems before getting kicked in the ribs for the 10th time that week. He's kinda like if the Lamenters were a single person now that I'm thinking about it. Not a one-to-one comparison, but he's about as lucky as they are. Nah, I take that back. Felix is if the Lamenters were one dude. Either way, time to wrap up. As always, thank you to my wonderful channel members. You are the Teclis to my rest of the Warhammer world, keeping me going through the coming storm. I hope that none of you have tuberculosis, because otherwise that comparison is going to be a bit dark. If you'd like to support the channel, feel free to subscribe or become a member. Either way, thank you for watching and take care out there.
What's Teclis's biggest weakness? His elf esteem. Look, I'm not lore master of Sotek. I'm not going to shame you every time for a pun. That was very good. Thank you, Hydominus Rex, for the super chat. That was a good pun. I appreciate that.
For being a masterful wizard, you'd think Teclis would invest more into healing spells. I get that high magic is supposed to be the ultimate form of magic, but seriously, even if it never cured his curse, it would have at least helped when he was blocking arrows with his face for the 1000th time. Seriously, dude, at least carry some band-aids around with you.
He's not wrong. That's honestly, it's a very good point. I don't know why you wouldn't invest in that. Even with something just to take the edge off. Just to take the edge off a little bit. I did get tuberculosis in high school. Oh no! Well, I hope you're better now. I hope you're better. Yikes. Now we have seen all the elf babes. Except you could probably say Tyrion's... Say Tyrion is an elf babe. I don't know. We have seen a lot of the elf babes. This is true. This is very, very true. We have gone through a lot of lore. It's very good lore. I learned a lot today. I have learned a lot. I don't know how much I've kept in my head. I'll be honest. But I have learned a lot. Yeah, we didn't really watch anything related to the wood elves. In any case, oh, my eyeballs. Many clips were made, yeah. At least we didn't have any of those sus clips, right? Right? None of those sus clips. About the Morning Glory milking farm. Don't worry, I won't traumatize you guys with that anymore. I will say that was a very insightful video. There's a you're gonna have to go back in the VOD. You're gonna have to go back in the VOD to see what I'm talking about. I won't traumatize chat again. I won't traumatize chat again. There is a novel, it's a smut novel. Beastmen, that's all. I'm not gonna traumatize you guys again. I'll spare you. I'll spare you. I need to ask Stim if that is actually the book. I assume it is. Well, it was not just your fault. Don't worry. It's not just your fault. I was talking about it because I was talking about something else, but so yeah, it is a real book. If you would like a good summary of the book, Shoe on Head does a pretty good summary that's informative without, like, you know, having to, like, deal with the trauma of reading the book. I fear Stim was lost long before that book. I wouldn't be surprised, but I mean, I guess the real question was, did she like Beauty and the Beast? Because that could have been where it started. Or, and only the girlies know this. only true girlies know this. There's a movie called Spirits, like Stallion of the Similarian, whatever, I don't know. It's about a horse. But I've heard tales that a lot of people were attracted to said horse. Yes, Spirit. The horse with the jawline, yeah. No, wait, hang on. Yeah. let me get you a good picture. Yes. Save image. No, I don't want a web file. That's dumb. Hang on. I have to, like, screenshot it because now they don't do. Back in my day, they didn't do no web files. We did PNGs and JPEGs. Now it's just irritating. Okay. Oh, wait, hang on. Here, I show you the picture of the horse. Here we are, chat. The horse in question. Yeah, Spirit Stallion of the Cimarron, or I don't know how to say that. A lot of little girls watched this when they were young. They're all grown up now. I've heard that this horse was a lot of people's like first crushes, and you know what I discovered that like kind of hurt me on the inside? Matt Damon is the one who voices the horse. Pretty confident it's Matt Damon. And I was like, oh man, he's the guy that does Jason Bourne. Yes, he does. It's him. I was like, bro. Cause I was like, yeah, that voice actor, he got a good voice. And it was like, oh, Matt Damon. It's wild. It's wild. Oh my gosh. Yep, he plays the horse. I was double checking it. Is that horse Jason Bourne? I love the Jason Bourne movies. It's so good. You became an adult, but you didn't grow up? No, I've grown up. You know, there's interesting looking at it, because in some ways, like even a couple years ago, I didn't feel like I grew up very much, but I feel like in the past couple years, I don't know how to articulate it. Something about becoming an adult, like a full-fledged adult. There's just things that are different from even just a couple years ago, where I'm like, wow, I kind of used to be this way, and now it's different. There are things that yeah, it's just odd. Responsibilities, yeah, that really does it. Wow, you certainly didn't grow up much vertically. I'll have you know that that girls stop puberty like in their mid-teens. They hit puberty before boys do. Why is the conversation cursed? We're just talking about a horse. It's not cursed. And guarding the Emperor is going very, very well. We're trying to get the Emperor, you know, one of the things that I'm really trying to do is I'm trying to get the Emperor to support this plushie petition that we have going on. You know, it's really important because I want to get a plushie to set on his lap. So he can be annoyed forever. Hang on. Yeah, the plushie petition, we have a week left. And it looks like this. It will look something like that. Little Skitter. Thank you. Thank you, mods, for pinning that. We all know the best horse is Shadowfax. Yes. Show us the meaning of haste. $26 left to go. We're really close. We have a week and 26 left. I hope we get there. I really hope we get there. Okay. This has been good. I've done the learning. Now I need to do the sleeping. But tomorrow we have Darktide with Luton, Stimpack, and DK Diamantes. That is at 11:30 a.m. Pacific time. I'm gonna put up the waiting room for YouTube. So yeah, I'm gonna do that. I need a thumbnail. I need a PNG for the thumbnail. Yeah, we're playing with gluten. It's gonna be great. It's gonna be great. So yeah, you can ask Stimpack, the Beastman lover. Okay, that sounds bad. The Beastman appreciator about how she got into Beastman. We'll talk about it. It should be fun. So it'll be a good time. So we're playing some Darktide, and yeah. And then I will be creating some more propaganda for the Skitters, because we are so close. We're so close. 1 week left. 26 more Skitters that need a home. If you want chaos in your home, if you want someone to steal your keys, Skitters are perfect for you. Mm-hmm. Indeed. Okay. Now, I will see you all tomorrow at 11:30 a.m. Pacific time for a fun stream. And yeah, don't skip leg day. Please don't skip leg day. Okay? Don't be built like a triangle. Hit the gym. Don't be like Techless. I mean, you could be like Techless and be powerful like a wizard. But go to the gym. Work on them legs.